This stream is sponsored by IGK TAS, telemetry analysis system powered by IGK. Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to TTML F1. We are here, of course, for our F1 action. It is round 4 of the championship for season 6. As we taking the Hungarian Grand Prix from the Hungaroring. My name is James. I'm going to be taking to the stream, as always, a little bit later than scheduled. And joining me in the comment box, of course, it is Mr. Luke Etheridge. Luke, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm very glad I've got a reason to stay off Twitter for the next hour and a half. I can tell you that one for sure. It should be, hopefully we'll get an absolutely fantastic race. I can tell you that the stewarding here should be a bit quicker. We shouldn't get any red flags either. But a bit like Saudi Arabia, we might not get all that much overtaking around the circuit, of course known, Monaco without the barriers, the Hungaroring.
Yeah, the Hungaroring, of course, to put it into perspective, 4.3 kilometre circuit, 2.7 mile, will come on into the track as we get going, of course, throughout this session. But Jensen, of course, leading the championship coming into tonight. Can anybody stop him? Coming in tonight, 3 wins on the bounce, 77.5 points to his name. Zernimer second on 43.5 points. Tom Robbo in third on 37.5. Tied with Fleddy, and actually it's quite close because Funky Chicken's in behind in fifth on 37 points himself. Rudy in sixth on 33.5. Lynx in seventh on 32. Connor in eighth on 29.5. Boss Wanted in ninth on 27. And Black Box in 10th. Now FVR Black Box in 10th on 24 points. Then it's Perpetuum, Noah, Isu, Bunty, and Luke ran off the top 15. F1 lover Denzel, Chalkers, Dutch Missile, and Nuth rounding off the top 20 drivers. Jensen, though, has got a considerable margin. It's more than a race win, I think. He's got actually over Zerdimer. I make it at 34 points, actually, between Jensen and Zerdimer. So we can afford, actually, to have a bad race tonight.
Yeah, certainly. And you might remember last time out, for those that watch, it was the sprint race that we had that time. It didn't go well for him, but his biggest rivals, well, what looked to be his biggest rivals before, were Tom Robbo and Connor. They both retired from the main race. Jensen kept it nice and clean, took the victory there, took the fastest lap as well. He's looked pretty imperious this season. Let's not remember in the sprint race, he had an incident with Tom Robbo, could well have possibly even won that one. He's looked fantastic at the moment. Zoidem has sort of come into the season as it's gone along, and he's just got that consistency at the moment, which is doing him well. But I still think it's not going to be him who is going to be the main rival. It is probably going to be the pace of Tom Robbo and Connor that we see come to the fore. But there's only 7 races left, of course. A short season here at TTML, and with Jensen building that bit of a gap, obviously still too early to say things are over, but he's looking pretty good. And if he keeps nice and consistent and the others don't stop these mistakes soon, the gap could be too big.
The gap could be too big, yeah, definitely. I mean, Tom Robbo, obviously, in Baku, we saw what happened with him 2 laps ago, went into the wall through the castle section, handed Jensen the race win there. It was a bit of the same last week, actually, in Imola, between them both. So they seem to be dominating now, I've got to say, in F1 coming into tonight, of course, and hopefully it is going to be a fantastic night's worth of action. Certainly, when I covered F2 here on Thursday, we had an absolute instant classic of a race, so hopefully it is more the same tonight in the top tier. McLaren, though, leading the way in the constructor standings on 111 points, Alpine in second on 80.5 points, Mercedes in third on 69.5 points, rightful to say, Ferrari in fourth on 42.5, point behind actually a Williams on 41.5, and then half a point behind is Aston Martin in sixth on 41 points, AlphaTauri 7th on 27, Haas in 8th on 21, Red Bull in 9th on 9, and Alfa Romeo in 10th on 7.5. McLaren, though, dominating once again. They're 30.5 points ahead of Alpine coming, of course, into tonight. And it just comes to show the consistency of both their drivers. Rudy, of course, filling in tonight in the McLaren. Jensen, of course, leading the championship. McLaren have been more consistent than Alpine. Simple as that.
Yeah, simple as that. And Rudy missed a race as well in Azerbaijan. But in the other 2 where he's been here, he had a 4th in Portugal, and the main race in Imola last time out, he had a 2nd place. So that consistency will win you titles because they've got the pace as well. So something for them to be happy about how they've started with the season. Alpine, again, it's Zoidema and Funky Chicken just picking up those points, which could help them as the season goes on, especially if the McLaren start making mistakes. I've seen it happen many times where drivers who aren't necessarily the quickest end up getting a good performance in the championship. I think it was last season in F2, Tibos ended up taking 3rd place in the championship. He had 1 podium in the 10 races all season, but was there for every single race and finished. every single race, quite often quite high up in the points. So that could help the Alpine drivers out. I think a bit further down the order in the championship, some teams that we might be expecting to see perhaps a little more of. Ferrari, obviously, we expect Connor to put in a good performance, but I think Mercedes as well, Fleddy and Lynx, at the start of the season, don't think we'd have expected, definitely not both of them drivers, to maybe be in the top 10 in the championship.
Yeah, definitely not. I think Lynx, obviously, shown from his form later on in last season, he really came to the fore towards the end. I mean, he was on pole position in Abu Dhabi and then completely messed up the start himself. But Lynx was right up there in terms of the vanguard in his later performances last season. Fleddy, of course, you know him by now. He is a fantastic driver as well. Very consistent. Drove well in Portimao, of course, for the season opener. But will the Mercedes gang begin to get the results that they well and truly need? We have to wait and find out, of course, at the Hungaroring. The link I can see is just being put in the chat by my co-commentator. We're just waiting on Connor to join the session, so hopefully we're not going to be too far away. But we can have a look, though, at the track map in question. It is, of course, the Hungaroring, and there's 4.3 kilometres and then 2.7 miles. 50% race, of course, 35 laps in total, 18 minutes worth of qualifying. 3 Commentators, C4, C3 and C2 Commentators, the softs, mediums and the hards. And if it's anything like F2, we could get a lot of safety cars, but also in terms of the strategy, it could really bring himself up for the alternate strategy runners to try and come to the fore.
Yeah, certainly. It was on previous games, I think, known for the alternate strategy. This track, on this game, the tyre wear doesn't seem to be anywhere near as heavy as it was on previous ones, so perhaps not the power that it had on previous F1 games, but yes, certainly, it can still be a good strategy. It all depends on how much clear air you get once you come out of the pits on the alternate strategy. If you get stuck in a DRS train around here, your chances of overtaking are slim to none, if we're being honest.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think DRS train, especially on lap 1, lap 2, if you're within 0.8 of a second of a car ahead, you're really not going to get the run. The further down you are, of course, in that DRS train, the less likely you are to try and overtake as the race goes on, of course. But we are now loading into the session. Short qualifying, of course, about to begin. 18 minutes worth of qualifying, and as I say, 35 laps. We saw quite a lot of overtaking in the first sector, especially in F2 on Thursday, especially in towards turn 4, believe it or not. Yes, that left-hander at the end of the first sector, that was a real keen opportunity for overtaking and good battles as well. And hopefully we're going to be seeing more of the same tonight. Will, of course, the drivers be needing the dry compound tyres or the wet compound tyres, of course, because the inters and the wets can obviously be featured as well within the game, but we are just loading up into the lobby. It says it's starting in 10 seconds for me, so hopefully we're going to be getting going very soon. But we should be seeing a fantastic race out on track, and obviously we hope it's going to be better than what actually happened in real life in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, we hope the leaders don't get confused as one's trying to let the other one past, although I'm not going to lie, I think if I was in both of their situations, I'd have done exactly the same as both of their drivers. But thankfully for the safety and sanity of everyone on Earth, there's no chance of me getting anywhere near a Formula 1 car. Although, if I was Esteban Ocon, I'd have definitely ducked on the start-finish straight just to try and get maybe that extra millisecond of time, and maybe that would have made a difference, and we could have seen him on the podium. But interestingly, that's twice now we've seen Valtteri Bottas do that in his career, snatch a result at the checkered flag.
It was, and the first time I think was 2017 with Lance Stroll, if I'm not mistaken, and Baku is when I think the first time happened, and of course the second time tonight, obviously in Saudi Arabia against Esteban Ocon. We are about to get going, of course, for the on-track action. There's been a few name changes since we actually happened for last week's race, of course, in Imola. IFR Noah is now no longer IFR Noah. It is now Noah Jones. We've also got name changes. I think Basti has changed his name, if I'm not mistaken. He's now part of WTV. And more importantly, I think Black Box has left IFR and has now joined FVR. And FVR, of course, being a very good team in terms of the PSGL event, which, of course, I cover on a Friday night. And Black Box is one of those drivers where he could come under a lot of pressure, but he copes with it so well. And I'll be very surprised if he doesn't try and feature in the result tonight.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's fair to say he's been giving it the big one. Basti's spun off already, actually, on the way out of turn 1, just getting caught out by the cold rear tyres. But yeah, Black Box has been talking a big talk, I think, all season so far. His results, 6th in Portugal, 6th in the main race at Imola, 5th in the sprint, so they've been fairly consistent so far. Just hasn't quite been able to get himself towards the top. I do, though, have an exclusive announcement. Well, exclusive for the race, as it turns out. I don't think we'll be seeing many drivers setting a time on the soft tyres. We're expecting rain in the race, and that might just make things a bit more awkward around this circuit. You do rely on the DRS around this place to do an overtake, and that won't be activated, of course, if it rains. So it could all be survival of the fittest over the 35 laps of the race.
Yeah, Luca put that, and I think in the Discord as well, saying that he's never raced in the rain without no assist. So it's going to be a bit of a baptism of fire, possibly for Luca. Chalkers, however, the first man out on track. It's a very short lap around here at the Hungary ring. And now we're about to go on board with the TRT man on board a lap. And now we'll take off the timing screen to the left-hand side to ensure that you get the best view on the run down in towards turn 1 with Chalkers. In excess of 190 mile an hour carried down in towards turn 1 and gets the car nicely on the brakes. Of course, he's on a set of medium compound tyres. He's not going to be setting the timing screen to light, but now down the hill in towards turn 2. And now coming through the left-hand return. So he's running very wide there, but we've seen drivers try and take the outside line and cut in. Chalkers through turn 3 and putting it up very nicely to the curb there. Now in towards the end of the first sector, 27.4 through the first sector. Doesn't look confident at all. He runs wide coming through turn 4. Now through the right-hand of turn 5. And of course, these guys probably haven't practiced that much, obviously, with the race over running in real life. So these guys are literally practicing now, pretty much on track. And Chalkers, I think it might be one of those that hasn't got any practice in. But now through the S section of turn 8 and 9, and then through the left-hander, of course, of turn 10, and then into the right-hander of turn 11. Chalkers, though, looking good. Nearly runs wide, actually, off camber. He's got a car ahead of him, but it's a 55.5, though, through the middle sector from Chalkers. As he's got, I think, a Ferrari ahead of him, if I'm not mistaken, as he now comes through in towards turn 13. And then in towards the right-hander, of course, of turn 14. A little bit rise up in towards turn 14. But again, try and take the wide out line, dip in to try and get the power out. But Chalkers looking not as confident on the lap, to be honest. It's 118.2. It's a clean lap, nonetheless. There's a McLaren, I think, spun in the middle sector coming through turn 5. And I'm not sure who that might have been. I think that might have been Rudy, if I'm not mistaken, because Jensen's obviously just had a lap.
Yeah, Jensen, very good lap on a set of the medium tyres. Makes me wonder when this rain might actually come in the race, whether we'll get it right at the start. Noah's heading around now. I think he's had a bit of an issue on his first lap, so some drivers clearly taking it easier at different parts of the circuit than others. Smalley, he's looking pretty quick in the Red Bull at this moment in time, so we'll follow the Red Bull driver around this very fiddly final sector of the lap. The penultimate corner almost looks as though you're heading towards the pit lane, and Smalley's trying to take it too tight on the inside. Very nearly ended up in the pit lane and backs it into the wall there. Very, very strange incident.
Very strange incident, but he looked really... He almost looked like he was going to go in the pit wall, quite simply. And that's why I think he corrected himself halfway through the corner, and then he spun on the curb on the inside through 14. It's not the first time I've actually seen that. It's not certainly going to be the last time I'll ever see it either. But Smalley does get a lap in. It's 122.7. That's more like it, however. Tom Robbo on a set of soft companion tyres, a 15.1. Jensen in second on a 15.9. And actually better by Lynx there, who goes up into second on a 15.6. We should see times begin to improve. I think Bunty just came across the line to finish in there into 7th, ahead of Basti by about 0.2 of a second. But Tom Robbo out on top, Lynx in second, Jensen in third, and we are through the first 5 minutes of qualifying with no events so far apart from Basti spinning, I think.
Yeah, it's been pretty straightforward so far. Connor heads towards the line, just goes into second place behind Tom Robbo, 1:15.287 for the Ferrari man. We'll see Black Box now. He's just coming through the final couple of corners. He was a victim, for want of a better word, of IFR's restructure. He's now joined FVR, and it looks like he's just firing up to go on a hot run now. Something we've seen quite a lot on this game, and I know I've said it quite a lot on this game. Drivers now tending to go for 2 laps quite often on a set of the soft tyres rather than the one they would have done previously. The tyres clearly lasting long enough to get a second run. So we'll see if Black Box can get himself towards the top of the order here, because there's quite a margin at the top of the field. Between Connor and Lynx, you've got nearly 0.4 of a second and just over 0.3 of a second between Lynx and Jensen, who did obviously set his time on the medium. So you would expect him to challenge Tom Robbo, if not better him, once he goes out on a set of the softs, as Boss Wanted has now slotted himself into third.
Yeah, Boss Swanson went third, 15.5. Good lap from him. He looked very neat and tidy through the middle sector. Luca, however, goes a 100th of a second off Tom Robbo, so not a bad lap there at all from the TTG man. Black Box went very wide coming through turn 4, and he's now coming through the middle sector at turn 10 and then through the right-hander of 11. But he went very wide. He's not on a good lap here at all. He is improving on his time, but he isn't on a good lap as compared to what we saw, of course, in F2, where the drivers were setting towards the 114 mark. But Black Box now in towards turn 13, and then through the right-hander of 14, there was a Ferrari getting out of the way in the middle sector, which caused in the yellow flags. I think that was Bunty out on a lap, but Black Box now coming around the final corner on the run to the line, and he goes fourth, and Nick's in there just ahead of Boss Swanson by about 700th of a second. Black Box there, though, up to fourth. Tom Robbo leading the way, though. Lucas second, Connor in third, nearly halfway through qualifying.
Yeah, nearly halfway through qualifying. Perpetuum, he's invalidated his run, and that's been a common theme for the former F1 champion. Let's not forget, he has not exactly had the best start to the season. We saw glimmers of what he used to be capable of, and still is somewhere in there at the sprint last time out in Imola. But yeah, things not going well for him in this qualifying session so far. Daniel taking a intriguing line, I think it's fair to say, through that part of the circuit, through 10 and 11. Not the conventional one. It is around this part of the circuit where it was redesigned in time for the 2003 season. They redesigned the final sector and turn 1. It did lengthen the track slightly and made it slightly easier for overtaking, which I think with modern Formula 1 cars can only be a good thing. Daniel seems to have lifted off enough though to get himself in a valid lap here. Doesn't look like he's going to be setting the timing screen to light too much. He just slots into 7th place. But yeah, a few drivers going out sort of out of sync with some of the others. Noah, another one who's just on a lap at the moment, nearly at the end.
Yeah, Noah down in there in 17th position, hasn't set a lap time so far. He's in the Aston Martin, of course, coming around the final corner. Not hitting, of course, the inside line like Smalley did early on in the session. But it's a good lap from Noah. He has got pace on his day, the former IFR man, and he's now up to 4th with a 150.4. He's another one as well. Obviously left behind with the IFR restructure. And I've got to be honest, IFR, I think, still have a very strong team. We've got Tom Robbo, out on top. He's only 100th of a second ahead, and this is the point really in the session where we're going to be seeing if the drivers can start to improve on their lap times. We saw it in F2, final runs, nobody hardly improved on their lap times, so they've got to all put it on the line. Tom Robbo has just started up a lap now, coming down in towards turn 2, but we'll see if he's going to improve. 1:15.134 is his time. By the way, there is no TAS system working. You can probably tell that because there was red flags in the real-life race. Didn't have time to set it up, so Tom Robbo now up in toward the end of the first sector. 26.7, he's a 10th up on his time, runs wide coming through turn 4. But nicely done as he now corrects the car in towards turn 5. And then towards the chicane of turn 6 and 7. Famously where Arava's GeoGuessr challenge happened there, just off the left-hand side. Yeah, Tom Robbo's going through turn 8 and then through turn 9. But Tom Robbo out on top, Lucas second, Connor in third, and he just invalidates coming out of turn 9. And that was looking like a pretty decent lap. However, obviously coming through the end of the first sector, he overcorrected himself, and I think he probably would have lost the time anyways.
Yeah, Jensen was another driver looking like he was on a good lap at that part of the circuit. But I think, again, turn 10 and 11, just starting to catch a few of these drivers out. Fleddy comes towards the line. First man into the 114s. This track is definitely improving. Fantastic lap from Fleddy. 1:14.827. Going back to Jensen and Tom Robbo. Both of them were quite a long way up through the first sector, so we would have seen improvements. And then going back to IFR restructuring their team. I do think teams sometimes can have too many drivers, and if you can't keep them all happy, keeping them just sort of stops them moving on to another team. So sometimes it is all about quality and not quantity, and we've got definitely lots of quality on the grid here today. Connor now coming through the middle sector. 2 temps up through sector 1. We'll follow him through 11 and 12. Looks like he's managed to keep it a lot cleaner than some of the others. Maybe a slight correction there. He's 4 temps up on his fastest. This could be pole position.
It could be pole position. We're on board with them now coming in towards 13. The left-hander Fleddy out on top, though. Tom Robbo in second. Connor, I think, set pole position around here, if I'm not mistaken, in Eloise. So he's got previous form in setting good laps around here. Now comes around the final corner on the run line. Is he going to beat Fleddy? No, he doesn't. I thought it was going to be a nigh-on improvement, but it's not. Connor goes second at 1:14.8. It's still Fleddy out on top. Connor in second, Tom Robbo in third. However, Tom Robbo is nearly 3/10 up in the end of the middle sector, coming through turn 12, and then through the left-hander of turn 13. Luca has just started up a lap behind, as Jensen goes quicker to the 1:14.5. So another wonder the championship leader is in the position he's in. He's now up to P1 in turn, but is Tom Robbo going to have a spot? Fights the car at the final corner, on the run to the line. He goes second, but not good enough to dethrone Jensen off that top spot. But Jensen, 1:14.5, that's going to take a lot of beating.
Yeah, Lucas trying to beat it now, and just judging by the car coming through the penultimate corner, he was just trying to beat it a bit too hard, very heavy on the throttle. Still improved up to 5th place, but didn't gain any positions on that. I think if it wasn't for that mistake, with how close things are, could have found himself higher up the order. Yeah, Jensen looking very good at the moment. Black Box is just coming into the pits. I think we've seen Boss Wanted throw himself up the order as well. Link's now coming into the final sector. The times are starting to tumble down in this session, and it's got a lot closer at the top. You can see just over 0.3 of a second now separating the front 3 rows of the grid, and we'll see where Lynx can slot his Mercedes. Can he get anywhere near his teammate at this moment in time? Not quite, but does get himself into 8th place. A lot of drivers looking pretty good. Jensen and Tom Robbo, though, definitely seem to just have the pace, and the fact that they can do it on a second lap makes me think if they nail it on a first one, we have got a tiny bit more to come from both of them.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing is, though, I was watching F2 around here Thursday, and there was so many lack of improvements in the final stints and their final runs. And this track really does punish us mistakes. And I think that as you get towards the top end of the grid, you're not going to really improve. And I think Jensen and Tom Robbo will have that on their mind. Will they try and improve? Obviously, I think they might have 2 runs left, both of them, which is good for them because they can get, obviously, another run out. But obviously, are they going to improve? That is the main thing. But it's Jensen out on top, Tom Robbo second, Freddie in third. 5 minutes to go in the session. Perpetuum set a lap time of a 1:41.9. It was a 10th down in the first sector. It was quite quick through the first sector. I think he backed off in the middle sector, but he is on a lap now in the Haas. Of course, former TTML F1 champion in Season 4. Harry Banks, of course, picked up the title in Season 5. As now Perpetuum runs through the end of the middle sector. 53.7 through the middle sector. So he's looking towards around Rudy Link sort of area. I'm thinking Link, speaking of which, is just off the left-hand side. There's a car round backwards coming through there, and I think that might have been Daniel, who was round coming through turn 12, then in towards 13 and 14. I flick on board with Jensen by mistake. Perpetuum, though, on the run to the line. It's a good lap from him, and he goes 15th in the end, 15.5, and he's up against it.
Yeah, certainly. I think, again, maybe the wrong word, perhaps a victim of the fact that TTML has now got no assists for the higher leagues, perhaps still trying to get used to the fact of not having no line. I believe back in his championship winning days, I think he had ABS, and in my opinion, and I think I'm one of the few who thinks that, I find that a harder assist to get rid of than the line. That might just because I've done so many laps around all these older circuits, I pretty much know them better than the back of my hand now. But yeah, Perpetuum not quite showing the pace, but we know, I think once it clicks for him, he might be able to definitely do a good job. Chalker's just struggling around here at the moment, quite a long way off the pace and not improving on this lap, so no surprise to see him coming towards the pits. The final drivers are starting to come out, though, for their final runs, and Jensen is out there on circuit.
Connor was a better start up in a lap. I think he's got this next lap invalidated coming through the exit of turn 12. So Connor was a better starter lap. He's not going to be on one, though. He's back into the pit lane, going to get another run out. Clearly wasn't happy. He must have picked up this next lap invalidated, and that's why he's down there in P4. But Jensen, as you mentioned, there he is coming through the middle sector. Perpetuum, I think, is off on a lap, but Jensen is going to be one of the first to obviously set a lap. 14.5. Will he find that improvement compared to Tom Robbo? 14.7, I think, is a better time to improve from than a 1:14.5 is. So Jensen has got to be aware that he's got his teammate behind. And speaking of which, of course, there's an IFL 123. Fleddy involved in this as well. And Fleddy hasn't been out, I don't think, since that run on a 1:14.8. So clearly feeling that he's got a lot of time to try and find. And I think he's probably approaching it the best way. But Jensen now about to start up on a lap, running now down through in towards the line, and now down in towards turn 1. A 1:14.556 is the personal best lap of this session so far. Les Link's just off to the right-hand side, but now Jensen in towards turn 1, then down the hill in towards the exit of turn 2. Of course, Hamilton went off here a couple of years ago, back in the Mercedes, I think it was, in the early days of the hybrid era. But now Jensen coming through the right-hander of turn 3. Didn't look as committed coming through turn 2, if I've got to be honest, coming through the end of the first sector. And that's why 6,000's down. Negotiates turn 4 very nicely now through the right-hander of turn 5. But this is not looking like a bad lap at all from Jensen. Off to the right-hand side there, another car getting out of the way. But Jensen now through the chicane of 6 and 7. Very quick through there, and he's looking on it.
Yeah, he's definitely looking on it. Perhaps took a bit too much curb, and he's now backed off on the lap. Ran wide coming through turn number 9 and turned there. I think he took a bit too much curb on the inside of turn number 2 perhaps, and had to be a bit careful on the throttle, but that car looked a bit loose through the first sector. So yeah, he's had to back off on that lap. He's got plenty of time to set another one. That's the advantage of going out earlier on. We saw Basti get himself up into P7. We'll see if he drops down the order. Luca, one of the drivers, out on a hot lap as well. But I think just further ahead of him is Black Box. He's improved in the second sector, but he's a long way. He's improved in the first sector. He's a long way off as he comes through sector 2, but he's just got a bit of traffic ahead of him. Still looks like he is pushing on this lap. Hopefully Basti gets well out of the way, because this might prove to be a bit of a distraction. No. And he does. And yeah, Black Box, I think, had backed off anyway. So a second down. Drivers finding it difficult to find time on this final run.
Yeah, he didn't make a mistake, to be honest, coming through the middle sector. He just went slow coming out of turn 5, so clearly feeling he might be on a little bit of a warm-up lap. Then he's compared to the rest of them, who are obviously now starting up on outlaps, and there's only 40 seconds to go in the session. And he's picked up a bit of a tow from an AlphaTauri of Daniel just ahead of him as well. So Black Box will be hoping to try and improve. Jensen, though, out on top. 300s up through the first sector, though, from Jensen, now coming through 6 and 7, and then through the left-hander of turn 8. I think he's going to be one of the first to set a lap time. But now McLaren flying through turn 8, and then through the left-hander of turn 10 now, and then through the right-hander of turn 11, right on the limit as he comes through the middle sector, and he's nearly 2/10 up on his time. So Jensen is flying on this lap as he now comes through turn 12 and then in toward the left-hander of 13. Tom Rubble there in third. Fleddy goes second, goes 14.6, so he's only a 10th off Jensen's time. He can get another lap out if he so wishes, but everyone now on laps. Jensen now around the final corner. This will be the pole position lap to beat. To the line, 14.3. Nobody's getting close to that.
Absolutely fantastic lap there from Jensen. So committed through, especially the middle and the final sector. Boss Wanted comes through the final corner. He has invalidated, so we're not going to see any improvements from him. I think Chalkers is going to be one of the next cars across the line. Checkered flag is out then in this session. Are we going to see any major improvements? Chalkers just trying to get himself off the back of the grid at the moment in the Alfa Romeo. Does find a big improvement, but nothing in terms of position in here. Black Box now comes towards the finish line. He's not pulling up any trees. He only goes into 10th place. Tom Robbo is off in the gravel coming through turn number 10, so we're not going to see any improvements from here. And I think Connor has backed off on this lap as well, so a lot of the drivers here making mistakes or not able to improve. I think I'm having to go, we've gone all the way down to Bunting. Noah, I think he's improving ever so slightly, but really old tyres, he goes up into 12th. I think that could well be it for qualifying.
I think it is well and truly it for qualifying. Most drivers either invalidated or just making mistakes. So exactly what I said in F2 has literally came true. I think Noah went 12th there, so Noah with a good lap up to 12th ahead of Black Box, but Jensen out on top, 3.5 tenths. Yes, you hear me right. 3.5 tenths of a second ahead of Fleddy in second, Tom Robbo in third. That IFR restructure that I might have been on about really hasn't done him any harm at all.
No, certainly, and Jensen will be happy with that because he's got someone in between him and probably one of his main rivals. Although, do we start talking about Fleddy in this championship battle all of a sudden? He was fastest in one-shot qualifying last time out. Got a podium in the sprint race, got a good result in the main race, doing a brilliant job and getting himself up there with, I think, the ones we perhaps expected more to be involved in the battle. Connor, don't know whether that's his AI's had a bit of a moment or him, because he has lost his front wing, and AI cars do tend to lose all control once the checkered flag has run out. But Jensen having no such problems with that second pole position of the season. He's looking very good indeed. But we know there's going to be rain in the race. We just don't know when.
Yeah, we don't know when indeed. I was just laughing there to myself for a minute because I was watching a Mercedes and an Alpine going side by side in AI mode going around the outside of turn 3, which wasn't too bad between Lynx and Funky Chicken there. But Jensen out on top, 3.5 tenths per second ahead of Fleddy. Really impressive lap from him. Tom Rubble there in third with Connor in fourth, Luca in fifth, Boss Wanted in second, Nuth in seventh, Zerma eighth, Lynx in ninth, Basti ran off the top 10, so just about sneaks in inside that top 10. Rudy in 11th, Noah in 12th, Black Box 13th, Bunty 14th, Funky Chicken in 15th, Petcham in 16th, Smalley 17th, Daniel 18th, and Chalkers in 19th. All drivers actually setting a lap time, and the top 13 covered by just less than a second. But it is Jensen out on top, Freddy in second, Tom Robber in third, and that sets us up nicely for a very good race, of course, here at the Hungaroring. And remember the track in question. I'm sure it's going to probably pop up on your screen, the video from the actual track map. And of course, we do have a 4.3 kilometre circuit, 2.7 miles in length. The two DRS zones, of course, one down the start-finish straight and one down in towards turn 2 as well. Plenty of opportunities for overtaking, plenty of elevation change as well, as it is absolutely teeming down out on track, full wet conditions.
Yeah, certainly. You guys can't see it on screen at the moment, but the Mercedes crew, look as though they've got the blue wall Pirelli tyres out, of course. The one compound that they only have the wets, and then there's the intermediate tyres, but this is full wet conditions. We don't know how long it's going to last for. At this rate, you'd say, even if the rain lightens off and stops about as early as you'd expect, the first half of the race, at least, is going to be wet. But it wouldn't surprise me if we're in for the long haul here and we could get a full wet race, which is going to suit you at the back of the field, if you're at the front of the field, because everyone behind you is going to be driving into a massive wall of spray. Something like 80 litres per second kicked up by these wet tyres. So I'm not sure if that's per tyre or per car. If we say it's per car, if you're the driver at the back, you're going for about 16,000 litres of water every second. And funnily enough, you've not got a lot of visibility in that.
Yeah, I think the 80 litres actually is the water that's disposed of per second out on the track. So if you take it into consideration, we've got, 19 drivers here. Probably do the maths yourself. It's somewhere around, I would say, under 10,000 litres of water a second that this track will kick up. So obviously will improve in terms of the track. We're now getting going, of course, on the formation lap, though. 19 drivers are waiting us out on track. Full wet conditions. However, I've just spied a little bit of an oil in the ointment. Rudy, 11th, on a set of intermediate condition tyre. I wonder if he's thinking 10 minutes into this race, it is going to start drying up, and the inters will be the better tyres. So, Rudy, he might be down at the back of the field. Is he trying to Yono up me, a Strat?
You took the words right out of my mouth, James. I was going to say anyone who watched F1 Esports, and I hope you weren't, because I'm fairly sure that race clashed with TTML F2 back a few weeks ago. Yeah, Rudy going for the intermediates, hoping, surely he's seen that it's stopping raining, well, that it's lightning in intensity fairly early on, otherwise he's going to be sailing down the order here. First couple of laps might be about survival, but then it might come okay to him. But looking at the track now, there's only one set of tyres I'd want to be on, and it would be the full wets.
It will be the full wets, and I think, honestly, look at the amount of standing water. I'm up with Jensen, and look at the amount of standing water there is out on track, and it's off track where, of course, the standing water kicks up, and especially around the curvages on track. Not luckily around the curvages on this track here in Hungary, but I know in Belgium especially, where it's such a hilly track and such an elevation changing track, the curbs really begin to pick out. And if you get on the white line and get on the curb, you're going to end up spinning the car. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few spins, maybe even a safety car, maybe even 2021 Hungary, of course, where Bottas skittled into everyone.
Yeah, that's very possible. I don't think we'll get the other Mercedes mistake of Hungary 2021, where Hamilton was starting all on his own. But who knows? We could have a slight tyre mix-up if Fleddy leaves it a bit late, if anyone leaves it a bit late to come in, or comes in a lap too early, which is normally what you see. Drivers just going for it a lap too early and then not quite having the pace. But this should be really interesting. It is a long run down towards turn number 1. Wet tyres, probably gone for a bit more of a wet setup, but the setups are fairly similar now on the game. Could be a very interesting turn 1.
It could be a very interesting turn 1. Of course, Rudy Son, that set of inters down in 11th position, right in the middle of the field. Will this be an instant classic of a race like we experienced in F2 on Thursday? Or if not, will this be the race of the season? Who knows? The 5 red lights are about to go out, I think, out on track very soon. Well, I hope they are. But I'm not getting... Oh, now we're getting going into the sequence. The 5 red lights are now coming on very quickly, I've got to say, out on track. But we are about to get going here in Hungary. Round 4, the championship is about to begin. And It's light and away we go. Pretty good pit stop strategy comes up weirdly, but Jensen gets a very good start. And I think the lights actually might have came on a bit slowly for half the field further down, but Jensen leads the way down in towards someone. Tom Robbo trying to go all the way around the outside line, and Connor coming in steaming on the outside line as well, and having to take it so gingerly. 3 wide coming out of turn 1 and behind, but Jensen leads the way. Connor now with the second, Tom Robbo third. Fleddy got caught out in all of that. It was 3 wide, and now Tom Robbo dives it down the inside line, and then he skittles Connor off the track, and Connor now having to take a forward in action himself. Luckily, no damage picked up at that, but Jensen's got a more than a second lead. Tom Robbo in second, Fleddy in third, Connor in fourth. Halfway down the field, I think everyone has cleaned through safely. Rudy is already down into 19th position, so no surprise there. Funky Chicken losing positions along with Perpetuum and Smalley, but Jensen leading the way. 1.2 seconds, having a real snap of oversteer coming out of turn 5. He actually nearly made a mistake coming out of turn 5. Tom Robbo there in second, Fleddy in third. I think everyone has got away pretty nicely.
Yeah, certainly. Everyone getting away okay. I imagine Rudy's bad start was more just getting off the start line rather than being involved in any incident, and maybe taking it very careful indeed, as there was a few cars getting pretty close in the midfield part there. I'm not sure who it was. We've got Noah all over the back of Basti, but so much happening in the first few corners. Very surprised we didn't have any cars spinning round, and there's our first one. Out of the race goes Chalkers and Rudy. What on earth has happened there? We've got a virtual safety car. We've got cars, I imagine the ghosting system, inside themselves. I think they're both, whether they've had contact or had their own individual little offs, coming through number 10 and 11. But yeah, very strange indeed.
Ooh. And it's a full safety car. Full safety car now deployed out on track. And I wonder if anyone is going to decide to jump into the pit lane. And yes, we are seeing Funky Chicken is in. Basti is also in. And I think they're the only 2. Smalley is also in and behind. They're the only 3 to come into the pit lane early. Are they going to go on to set of inters, or have they picked up front wing damage? Let's find out. But Rudy and Chalkers, I was on board with them actually coming through turn 7. It was through the left-hander of 7 and then the left-hander of 8. And they seem to have made a little bit of contact with each other coming through there. Rudy was up the inside of him. Chalkers was ahead, and comfortably ahead. And I wonder actually if Rudy might have got into Chalkers, lost it on the curb. I don't know. Chalkers, though, out the race along with Rudy, both of them. And we don't get to see, of course, how Rudy's progress was going to make to the Yano up. Mia Strats is already done. But, interestingly, everyone has came in, those that did come in, for a set of intermediate compounded tyre. Predict the pit stop strategy, by the way. From wets to wets, lap 17 to 30. I don't think we're going to be seeing a full wet race, to be honest. But Basti 15th, Funky Chicken 16th, and Smalley 17th, all on a set of inters. And they're going to be right down the back of the field. But Jensen leading the way, Tom Robbo in second. Apart from that contact, it was relatively clean throughout.
Yeah, we know Tom Robbo and Connor got very, well, they did touch. No doubt about getting very close to touching. They did touch. The advantage of the drivers that are now on the intermediate tyres is they can get a bit of a feel for the track in these conditions. They can push fairly hard, not flat out. As you can see, not even going flat out is impossible. Basti getting over the curb there. This says to me we are going to see intermediate conditions sooner rather than later, but the leader's clearly thinking that it wasn't worth it. And in the chat we've got Jess proving how good of a commentator that she is. She doesn't even need to be commentating on the race, and she can give the good old commentator's curse. And unfortunately for Rudy, he was the victim this time around. A bold strategy, but just looks like it was too wet at the start of this race to really make those intermediate tyres work. And I'll be surprised that, Tom Robbo, leaving it very late. He's deciding to come into the pit, deciding to give up a lot of track position here.
There's quite a few of them coming in, actually, and I wonder if this is the turnover period between the set of inters and the set of wet compounded tyres. And I think, obviously, the rain has not lessened down in terms of the intensity, but everyone in behind are coming in for a set of intermediate compounded tyre. Tom Robbo included in that, so this is going to be quite interesting indeed. Jensen are leading the way, Fleddy in second, Connor in third. It means now the top 6 are on a set of wet compounded tyre. Everyone else in behind on a set of inters. They may as well try something that is under pressure compared to everyone else in front, because they're going to be on the quicker tyre. I mean, Basti is essentially in the net lead of this race. If those wets don't come online, he is in the net lead of this race. Funky Chicken in behind as well. So they're going to be trying to gain through the field, but it's the wet compounder runners. If they all concertina up together, they're all going to concertina up, and everyone's going to be in a big old train in behind. So I don't think it's really worked out for anyone at this stage, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ones it has worked out for, if we get the position changes up, you can see Basti's got up 3 places, Funky Chicken up 7, and Smalley up 8. Pitting on that first lap while there was gaps in the field was the thing to do, because now by the time Tom Robbo, Links and the rest have pitted, Basti, Funky Chicken and Smalley had already got their way up the order, and they've got a lap extra in these intermediates, and they've had a feel on what they're like at almost racing speeds, whereas now Tom Robbo and those behind him are only going to know what they're like under slow conditions, and their first racing lap is going to be the first time they've put any sort of pace into the tyres, so they might find it a bit more difficult. It's going to be very intriguing indeed. I think at this moment in time, safety car coming in this lap, I think it is still wet weather conditions and wet weather tyres at this moment in time. 2 or 3 laps time, it could well be the intermediates. It looks like we've got a drier line appearing, but there is still plenty of standing water off of the line.
Yeah, definitely so. I think the rain hasn't intensified at all, and in fact it hasn't lessened either, so it's still the same intensity in terms of the on-track action and in terms of the rain. But Jensen now about to begin on his lap, and now he's absolutely floored it. He's 9 tenths a second ahead coming out the final corner, and Connor is side-by-side action with Fleddy running down in towards turn 1 as a result, and all the guys in the set of Inters are trying to catch back up to this pack. Connor sends it on Fleddy down the inside line in towards turn 1. The Ferrari on the Mercedes gets the job done, forces him out wide, and now Boss Wanted tries to cut it on the inner as well, and Fleddy has a massive moment, but it's a snap of oversteer, and he loses the position to Boss Wanted, so a bit of a mistake there from Fleddy. Boss Wanted though through into 3rd, Fleddy into 4th, Basti is through and still in 7th, Tom Robbo is through on Funky Chicken, and he's been caught up by the result, by the start as well, and now Lynx is all right on the back of Tom Robbo. Tom Robbo now in 8th, Lynx in 9th, so positions being lost there from Funky Chicken's perspective down into 10th position, but again a very clean restart, and those guys at the set of Inters are keeping up.
Yeah, well, I think must have been Chicken must have had a bit of a bad restart, because that gap did form in the field, because Basti, as we go on board with him here, he's all over the back of Luca at this moment in time, but it's single file in dry conditions around most of this circuit. In wet conditions, it is going to be even more so, of course, so just being patient now for Basti. It looks like you are on the best tyres. Don't lose your front wing and wait for these drivers to come into the pit. So that is Perpetuum, who I feel like I may have just caught the end of a reset to track there, which will be a 5-second penalty for him. If that is the case, his teammate, though, is having a much better job of it down the inside of Zoidema, and now they're starting to drift on the wet tyres. I wonder if that's just because of the weather conditions, or they're starting to overheat these sets of the wet tyres. Jensen's got away from Connor, though, who's got away from Boss Wanted. Basti right on the back of these cars, though. We're approaching the switchover point rapidly.
Yeah, Inters are looking better than a set of wet compounded sides.
Sorry!
Into the back, and Tom Robbo forces it way down the inside line. Basti in behind. I was on board with him, expecting to move on the inside as Zodoma, but he didn't actually manage it. Now Links is side by side with them, down in towards turn 2, and I think he's going to try and get the undercut, if I'm not mistaken, but Tom Robbo coming alive. He's right on the back of Zodoma, and now it is the time to try and say go up the hill in towards turn 4. Can he get the move done? Probably not. Links is side by side with him, however, on Basti, in behind, doesn't get the move done in towards 4, and now up into the turn 5 complex, through the right-hander of turn 5, Basti catches himself on the inside curb slightly, but Tom Robbo forced a move down the inside line. Really want to get on with things. To be honest, I wasn't even expecting it. I'm sure you weren't too either.
Yeah, I think my little expression was, Basti was a bit late on the brakes there. Just snatched the front ever so slightly and tapped the back of Zoidema. I almost thought he was going around, and if the ghosting system won't take hold, that could have been an almighty shunt at the early part of this race. But Basti, he looks like he's got away with it without any major front wing damage, as you can see how eager Tom Robbo is to get a move done here. Zoidema has won ride ever so slightly, and that is the chance. Thank you very much, says the Williams driver. He's up into 6th place. You got Fleddy and Luca battling side by side as well. One of these two might end up getting shoved off towards the pit lane, and Luca takes the opportunity anyway, as does our race leader. So Jensen and Luca coming into the pit off the set of the wet tyres. Perhaps they now think is the time. We'll see how Connor and Boss want to do, and Fleddy on this lap compared to those behind, as Rudy left the session, unsurprising, after his retirements. Fleddy just going straight on at turn 1, never getting that car stopped in a month of Sundays. Not the first time we've seen a Mercedes barrel into turn 1 at the Hungaroring.
Black Box as well, right on the back of Zerdema, tries to launch it down the inside line in towards turn 2, doesn't get the move done. Side by side as well, and behind Bunty trying to go all the way around the outside of Smalley. Can he get the move done? He's on the inside line. He has to back off, though, and Smalley down in P10. And now Bunty in P11. Black Box, though, right on the back of Zerdema. And if there's anything to go by, Tom Robbo's already pulled 1.5 seconds clear, pretty much of Fleddy, and Zerdema's really struggling on that sort of wet compound side, not only overtaken by his teammate, but overtaken by Black Box as well. So through into 7th and 8th position they go. Smalley down into 9th, Zerdema in 10th position. He's off into the gravel slightly as well. As I get an invite from somebody on F1, please do not invite me when I'm commentating. Thank you very much. Bunty in P10, Zerner there in P11. Connor though leading the way, 4 seconds. The gap, Tom Robbo was all over the back though, Boss Wanted. And I think he's going to try and move in towards turn 12, down the inside line, in towards turn 12. And Boss Wanted just says, you know what, come through. Tom Robbo through and he's into P2. Bassey through, forced it down the inside line. Can he get the move done complete? Yes, he can. And now Lynx is trying to go around the outside of turn 13. And this will be really good if he can pull it up. But Fleddy just shuts the door on his teammate, comes into the pit lane as well. And now all the guys in a set of wets coming in.
Yeah, Jensen, he pulled out about 1.5 seconds closer then to Connor on that lap, so he should come out comfortably ahead of him, but he's going to be a long, long way down the order. Tom Robbo, unsurprisingly, fastest lap of the race. This is the opportunity he needs. It's not been a bad first 3 races for Tom Robbo, but Jensen's won 3 out of 3, so the others now need to start closing up the gap, and with Jensen currently being in only 11th place and having to fight his way up the order, he's going to find it hard to get a podium, I think. We should see one more pit stop, even if it stays intermediate conditions in this race. The intermediate tyres cannot last a full race distance, as Noah and Daniel going side by side there. The Aston Martin car number 8 now in position number 8, but it looks like Daniel is going to try and fight back, not able to stay alongside though into turn number 4. All looking good for Tom Robbo. He was able to make his way through the traffic a bit easier than some of the other drivers. He's now got a 2-second lead. We'll see how Bastille, Lynx and some of the others can cope in these conditions. I've got slightly fresher tyres as Tom Robbo than Basti, Funky Chicken and Smalley, but it won't make too much of a difference on this set of the intermediates.
Yeah, Tom Robbo 2.3 seconds clear. Basti there in second, and all of those guys obviously pitting in now really brings about the fact that are these tyres going to get to the end of the race? Jensen, I think there's going to have to be a 2-stop. They're surely going to have to pit in for another set of intermediate competition tyres. We're only on lap 7 and going on to lap 8. So surely there's going to be another pit stop being made, obviously for a set of intermediate condition tyre, obviously if the rain still falls. But Tom will lead the way, Basti in second. Lynx has got a lot of good pace. Daniel's all sideways, bit in behind them and has spun, coming through turn 13. So Daniel's now spun. He's kept the car going. No front wing damage, luckily, on the car. Just a slight mistake. And now Daniel down into P13. Still, though, within the points. Of course, all point scoring positions here, down to 17. Tom will leading the way, though. Basti in second, Lynx in third. A little bit of a real world update, by the way. Apparently, Hamilton and Verstappen have been summoned to the students for their behaviour out on track in real life in Saudi Arabia.
I think we all saw that one coming, didn't we, ladies and gentlemen? It was, I think it's fair to... You know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. It is not worth the abuse I'm going to get from probably Verstappen and Hamilton fans if I go for anything. So, no further, no comment, Your Honour, I think is the best way to sum that one up. Back to the action here. Basti had a massive moment coming through the final corner on the last lap. Lost him quite a bit of time and allowed Lynx to get slightly closer, just struggling in the dirty air. Quite a high downforce track, this one, and not really able to do things. So this track, this race is going to fall into a sort of a pattern now where I think you're going to have to be very careful with where you go for the moves. Maybe you have to plan them a couple of corners before. You see Bunty all over the back of Smaller here. You're going to have to think about now getting a good line through the penultimate corner to take that wider apex through the final corner to straighten the car up best as possible, and you might be able to get a move done here. And we'll see whether Bunty can try that on the back of Smalley, whether he goes for a bit of a wider line, a bit deep on the brakes perhaps, and not able to really get on the throttle as early as you like. And that's the issue with dirty air, and they've got no DRS at the moment. But judging by how much it's barely raining at this moment in time, I think it will stop at some point in this race, and we will see DRS get activated as Jensen and Connor now trading fastest laps down in 10th and 11th.
Yeah, and Jensen looking quite quick on the back of Perpetuum, and he's gained nearly the 3-second gap that he came out of the pit stop behind, and he's 6 tenths away now, so he's gained 2.5 seconds nearly on the back of Perpetuum, and he's only on 3-lap pressure tyres, and that 3-lap pressure tyres will probably spawn to round about 10% to 12% in terms of better tyre wear in Jensen's favour, and he is setting purple first sector as well. I think Connor bettered that, in fact, in behind, and Connor is certainly up first because he's also catching Jensen as well, and they're beginning to fall over each other. Bunty, however, in sixth, doing a fantastic job so far. He's on the back of Smalley. Smalley, of course, brand new driver, of course, into the division. As soon as I say that, by the way, Bunty's just nearly got off, coming through the S section. Jensen, however, now through on Perpetuum. I think Perpetuum made a slight mistake there. Now Jensen is through and he's into P9, so Perpetuum clearly making mistakes, but he is up quite a lot of positions from his race starting positions. And in fact, Funky Chicken and Smalley are the ones that have gained the most, 12 and 11 positions gained respectively. Lost positions, Fleddy, 15th position from second on the grid. Disappointing so far, but I think he'll be hoping that the dry conditions will begin to come as Tom Robbo now sets the fastest lap of the race, and he's now more than 4 seconds clear out in front.
Yeah, Tom Robbo, you'd imagine, no matter, barring a safety car or a mistake from Tom Robbo, he's looking pretty good to take this victory here. 26 laps to go. He's pulling away from Basti. He's not the fastest person out on track. I think on that lap he was. On previous laps it was Jensen and Connor, but they're a long way down at the moment. You can see Connor's just dived one down the inside at the first corner on Perpetuum. So it's not a bad situation to be in right now for Tom Robbo. You are pulling away. He's just got to be nice and careful. Just try to build a gap and be comfortable, but don't slow down too much. As soon as you start thinking about it, like when McLaren told Senna in 88 at Monaco, oh, Prost's got the fastest lap, but take it easy, don't try to get it back. As soon as you start thinking and not doing it naturally, the mistakes start to come, as we see Daniel with the first mistake in terms of a time penalty. He's now on his way to a 3-second penalty. But yeah, Tom Robbo is all looking pretty good for him at the moment. A lot could depend on this race and how quickly Jensen and Connor can work their way through the traffic. Both got past Perpetuum really easily, but there is a train of cars they're catching up to, of Smalley, Bunty, Nooth, Noah. In normal conditions, that would be a DRS train, so not this time around, but it's going to be a lot harder to send a move down the inside, I think, with the cars this close together.
Yeah, possibly. Oh, Bunty's ran massively wide coming through turn 13. He gets a bit of understeer off the car, and now coming through turn 14, Smalley looks better, but Bunty trying on the back of Smalley, both sideways. In fact, you can tell in terms of the standing water how much that is now dissipated out on track. And now Perpetuum is into the pit lane. So Perpetuum into the pits further down the field. Luca was right on the back of him, but now Perpetuum is into the pit lane. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if this could be first set of dry compounded tyre. I don't think we're too far away from a set of dries coming out. However, that looks like Greenwall tyres actually, so it's intermediates, and you can just totally ignore what I've just said. Tom Robbo leading the way, Basti in second, Links in third, lap 11 out of 35, nearly two-thirds, not two-thirds around the race, 2/5 through the race.
I think everyone who was seeing my view then might just understand why my heart has stopped. Bunty desynced through Smalley on my screen, and I thought he'd completely locked up the brakes. He was about to have a massive accident. He's still all over the back of the Red Bull, but yeah, he's finding it really difficult to get any moves done at the moment, and this will be frustrating Noof and Noah, who might be thinking when it comes to the time, whether it's for a second set of intermediates or for a set of the dry tyres, just to go in a bit earlier to perhaps get themselves out of this train, because the race just seems to be settling down. Probably what we expected to happen at Hungary, even without the rain. The rain just making it all that more so difficult.
Yeah, definitely. So Bunty again, I was totally on board with what you were saying there in terms of his desync, and he nearly desynced again coming through the S section of turn 10 that time. And Bunty looking like his connection is struggling. He's not struggling in terms of his tyre life at all. He's doing very well. He's just overwearing those tyres maybe slightly on the front rather than the rear. Smalley trying to break the tail, running down in towards turn number 1, and no room behind on the back of Nuth is quite close down in towards turn 1, but not going to get the move done from that far back. So Nuth there in 7th, Noah in 8th, Tom Robbo still leading the way, Basti in 2nd, Links in 3rd, Funky Chicken in 4th, and Funky Chicken now beginning to pull away from the guys in behind. That train now 4 cars, possibly going to be 6 cars by the end of the lap, because Jensen's 1.3 seconds off, Connor is only 1 second off Jensen, and on the lap fresher tyres, Connor has caught nearly a second and a half on Jensen in clear errors. Nuth is now the latest to pick up a 3-second penalty, but Connor seriously showing a lot of pace on the back of Jensen. If he can clear Jensen before he gets onto the back of the queue, I think Connor might be on to win this.
Yeah, it's a big if at this moment in time. I mean, Jensen's 13.8 seconds behind Tom Robbo. Before the pit stop, well, before Connor did his pit stop, I think Jensen was about 15, 16 seconds behind Tom Robbo, so I think he's definitely closed up the gap slightly, but they're a long way behind. You're talking half a second a lap here. The only way they're going to do that is mistakes, or this circuit dries out. It looks like it's getting brighter, but I think as long as the rain's still falling, we're not going to see it go to dry tyre conditions, and now Jensen is fully on the back of this train. Whether this will give some of the drivers in the train the hurry up, I'm not so sure. They can't stay close enough through the final corners, and Smalley, he's not even having to go defensive at this moment in time. He's able to drive his own race, and that is good news for him. Yes, he's losing out to Funky Chicken. He's now 2 seconds behind, but he's not losing out dramatically on this occasion. And because Jensen and Connor, they're now stuck in this train, they can't send one, for example, if Jensen sends one up the inside of Noah, it's very possible he'd end up crashing into Noof. If Noof wasn't in there, I think he'd just go for the move and, you know, throw it at the wall and sort of see what sticks. But at this moment in time, he's just got to be a bit more circumspect with the moves. Going to be very frustrated though, because him and Connor have clearly got some pace here and not really in a position to use it.
Well, Nuth was looking quite quick, actually, coming through the middle sector on that lap and then through the final sector. Bunty, again, de-syncing all over the place, if I've got to be honest. Nuth there in 7th, Noah in 8th. They're all now beginning to fall over each other. And Luca is not entirely out of this either. And speaking of Luca, he's just made a mistake coming through turn 5 there, getting all sideways through. But he's 4.2 seconds in behind. Everyone now falling over themselves, and they're stuck behind a Bunty train. Quite literally, because Smalley's just beginning to ebb away slightly from Bunty. Bunty's still within 5-6 tenths of a second on the back of Smalley, but given that his connection is quite bad and he nearly locks up into the back of him, actually coming in towards turn 12, and Bunty just now needing to learn, as he goes inside of Nuth there on my screen, certainly, Nuth still on the back of Bunty. These are the sorts of mistakes that he wants to try and make, and Nuth there in P7, looking quite good, and he's honestly all over the back of Bunty, and if there's anything to happen further in behind, further in front in fact, then obviously that's going to come into play. Noah on the back of Nuth, I don't think he's going to be close enough down the inside, in towards turn 1 yet, just waits his turn down the inside line, and now on the exit of turn 2, Nuth getting a little bit sideways. I don't think he's going to be close enough. He needs DRS really to try and get the move done down in towards turn 2. We're not halfway through the race, we're 2/5 through the race. Tom will be leading 5.4 seconds the gap, still pulling away. Basti in 2nd, Lynx in 3rd. Funky Chicken a bit of no man's land there in 4th. But everyone now hopping on board the Smalley train.
Yeah, everyone is on board the Smalley train. We've had a yellow flag, and that is Basti facing the wrong way, coming out of, I believe that's coming out of turn number 5. So that is big news for this race in terms of, well, the lead. Tom Robbo's now has got jumped up to 2nd place, and Basti's going to come out with all of this side by side with Jensen. Over the curb goes Jensen, and that's allowed Connor to get down the inside. Fantastic opportunism from the Ferrari driver. Basti just making a slight mistake there, and that's allowed Connor to get the position, and Jensen as well. I can't imagine Jensen would be too happy about that, but Basti's, he's got to try to recover on track somewhere, and, you know, the corner was coming up. There's not a lot the Alpha could have done there, as Lucas took a really wild line, but to re-emphasise the point about how much these drivers are being held up, Luca was about 4 seconds off the back of what was Connor. He's now 2.4 seconds off the Basti. This train is getting a lot longer, and I think if it's going to be intermediates towards the end of the race, there might be only a couple of laps towards one of them pulling the plug and diving into the pits. So if no one pits in the next few laps, I think that suggests to us we are going to see dry conditions.
Yeah, well, on to that, actually. I'm thinking that the rain is beginning to ease quite, well, not substantially out on track, but it is easing off at certain parts of the track. It's coming really from turn 14 onwards, so it's coming pretty much westerly across the track, and the rain is now beginning possibly to stop as Noah's all out of shape, actually coming through turn 2, and he joins right in front of Connor, and he just about get the car going. I mean, Connor wasn't going to get the gap whatsoever. It wasn't going to be opportunistic at all. Noah just rejoined in front of him, pretty much parked the bus in terms of that. And there's a spinner through the middle sector, Funky Chicken's out the race, coming through turn 5, and that could deploy a safety car, I think. It is off track, however, so that might not be a safety car, but we'll have to wait and see. And there is Funky Chicken off to the right-hand side. Yeah, he's gone hard into the wall, outside curb, I think, of turn 5's claimed another victim as safety car is deployed.
Well, safety car deployed. Now this is interesting. This is really intriguing. Do you come into the pits and get a fresh set of intermediates which would last you towards the end of the race? Or do you stay out on the circuit knowing that it's going to get dry? Tom Robbo, he's staying out there at the moment. He's got such a gap on front of the field. I can't really blame him. Everyone staying out there makes me think it's not, well, I say everyone. There's such a gap. It's only the first 2 drivers we've seen go past at the moment. But Bunty, almost dummy in there, I think. It's going to dry out. If it was going to stay raining, you'd pit under this safety car, put on a set of intermediates towards the end of the race. The fact that no one has done that has confirmed, in my opinion, and you might disagree, James, and I'm sure some in the chat might disagree.
Ooh.
It's going to stay dry, sure. It's going to become dry, as Boss wanted, though. He has decided to come into the pits. Now, it's still raining out there. It's still very wet. If this is for a slick tire, he's extremely bold.
This is going to be for a slick tyre, because I think this rain is going to stop at the end of the safety car period. And he's in for a set of inters, so actually he's not in for a dry compound tyres. We're thinking up. Black Box is in for a fresh set of inters as well. So this is making me think that we could get rain still later on in this race, which was meaning these guys are now carrying on their stint on a fresh set of tyres. Perpetuum now into the pit lane. Zerdimer, I would assume, is going to be coming into the pit lane as well. But in 15th and 16th position, you've got to try and be bold and try and go brave, because I honestly think this rain is beginning to ease out on track. Tom Robber now under the safety car leading the way still. Links in second. All of that hard work that was brought up by Tom Robber, I mean, the gap was nearly 6 seconds just before the safety car came out. It's now 0.6 of a second underneath the safety car. So Tom Robber, all of that real work that he did early on in the race, and it came back to bite him, really. And now with the safety car, he's got to do all the hard work again, as I'm beginning to see glimmers of blue sky coming through just off to the left-hand side of the track.
Yeah, certainly. I was wondering why Newford dropped a long way back behind Bunty and Smalley there. I wonder whether he was trying to build a double stack gap, but he's closed it up quite severely. I think why we saw those at the back come into the pits is they weren't losing any positions. They had enough of a gap to not lose a position. You might as well come in and put a fresh set of intermediate tyres on, because there'll be so much grippier on the restart and you can gain a few places up the order. And if it does carry on raining for the rest of the race, your quid's in, you might get yourself a victory or a podium here. If it does stop raining, well, you've had fresher tyres on, you've not lost anything, you've got much grippier tyres to try and gain something at this moment in time.
I think Luke's fire alarm, by the way, going off in the background. Tom leading the way, 0.4 of a second ahead of Links. We are in the safety car period, though, so it is a good time to try and switch off a fire alarm, I've got to be honest. But Tom Robber leading the way, Links in second, Smalley in third, Bunty in fourth. We are nearly at the halfway stage, as I say. And I'm really not surprised that drivers have not come in for a set of dry compound tyres. Obviously, it's still raining out on track, and whether this rain is going to ease off towards the end of the race remains to be seen, or are we going to get literally a couple of laps of dry weather, and is it going to be worth it actually coming in for a dry set of tyres? We just don't know. We're not weather forecasters, of course, in the commentary box. Drivers out on track are not weather forecasters either, but Jeff is, and I'm sure Jeff would be on hand to do an interview at this point in terms of the weather. But safety car is going to be at least for another lap or so. Perpetuum and Zerdimer, I think, are not going to catch up by the end of this lap. But there's Tom Robber leading the way. Links in second, Smalley in third, Bunty there in fourth, Nuff in fifth, and Tom Robber getting all sideways, actually, coming out of turn 8, the left-hander through turn 8. Tom Robbo now holding on, Links in second, Smalley in third. It is still looking quite good in terms of an IFR 1-2 at the minute. Bunty there in fourth position, really outperforming himself, if I've got to be honest. He's driving such an astute race, obviously locking up in towards the corners. Bunty might be one of the guys to watch and might be one of the ones that might drop down further in the field. However, Connor ahead of Jensen could be quite interesting. 7th and 8th position, 7/10 of a second, of course, and behind Noah, and Jensen only 5/10 off Connor underneath the safety car. But when they get going, Connor will have fresher tyres than the top 6 ahead of him. So you would imagine that Connor is going to be theoretically the quickest man out on track, apart from, of course, Boss Wanted, Black Box and Perpetuum.
Yes, you would imagine that. Sorry about the fire alarm, folks. Thankfully, I did run out of my bedroom as quickly as possible to see. This is what happens when you have linked fire alarms across a house. Someone's burnt something in the kitchen, and I'm suffering on the second floor. I'm just glad it wasn't my cooking for a change that was causing the issue. So yeah, things getting a bit hot downstairs. Things hopefully heating up on track anytime soon. Still got a bit of rain though. I've got to agree with what you said. Connor's tyres and Jensen's out of the top 9 drivers. You can add Luca for the top 10. Should be in the best condition. But Boss Wanted, Black Box and Perpetuum are probably thinking round about now, I'll just keep raining for the rest of the race, and we've got ourselves a fantastic chance of pulling off a very unlikely result here all of a sudden, because it's been at this intensity for the last few laps, and there's no real dry line anymore. The entire track's just at that same sort of slick, wet level where there's no standing water, but things are very damp out there, and it's clearly not ready for the set of the dry tyres at this moment in time. Safety cars should be coming in on this lap, and this is going to be an interesting restart, because we're at least, if it stops raining now, I'd say we're at least 3 laps away from dry tyres. These intermediates are going to start struggling any moment now.
You'd imagine so, but obviously underneath the safety car, everyone is beginning to burn their fuel loads as well. I'm seeing certainly the top 2, Lynx and Tom Robbo, they're running very high second gears coming through the middle sector, and they're trying to burn away that excess fuel, so that is going to be important. Whether or not, of course, they can get to the end of the race under their own accord with the fuel remains to be seen. Safety car, however, is coming in this lap. It is Tom Rubber now the virtual third Marlander. He is now the virtual safety car, and he is now going to be leading the safety car pack along in towards the final couple of corners. The rain has nearly stopped out on track. It's still that very light rain that you normally have in terms of the tracks. Tom Rubber looks like he's going to go already as he now comes through turn 13, then through 14. He has already gone, and look at how now the pack is stretched out. Tom Rubber leading the way. Links in second. Smalley is being caught absolutely napping in third. And now Bunty is right on the back of him, coming down in towards turn 1. And there's a spinner at the final corner. Noah has spun, coming through the final corner. Has he come out the wall like Vettel did? I don't think he has. Now Bunty tries to go all the way around the outside of Smalley. This is a podium position possibly between them both. They can lean on each other slightly now. Nothing's going to try and get the up and under on the outside line now in towards turn 2. I think Noah has recovered to the back of the field. Noth's trying to though go all the way around the outside of Bunty. He is committed as anything down the inside line. Lovely move. And now Connor is going to join in the fray as well. And now look at this, in towards turn 4. Not going to get the move done, however, Connor. Bunty again lagging back. It's not Connor that's the one that's lagging back. Tom Rubber leading the way. Links in second. Connor's trying the impossible, trying to go around the outside of turn 5. Doesn't pull it off. Bunty stays in 5th, but loses out, crucially on a position to nothing.
Yeah, crucially for Bunty there. Just a bit slow on the restart. Got caught out ever so slightly. Noah just too optimistic. Coming out the final corner and having a big shunt there. I think Perez had a massive one there once in Force India. Sort of in between that and what Vettel did in the end for Noah. He'll have to come into the pits this time around and probably have to come in for another set of intermediates. Unfortunately for him, he'd lose too much time if he came in for a set of slick tyres now. But Tom Robbo getting that restart pretty much perfect, and Link's able to get ahead of him. Tom Robbo's 3 seconds ahead of third place at this moment in time. We saw earlier on, it looked as though Bunty had the pace on Smalley, but just wasn't able to get a move. Now it's the Williams of Nooth behind the Red Bull driver. I wonder if he'll be a bit more aggressive. DRS obviously won't get activated. A, is with less than 2 laps after the safety car, and B, most importantly, it's still raining out there on the circuit as Nooth tries to get a better exit out of turn number 1. Can't quite manage to do so. Those that want the fresh set of tyres, Boss Wanted, Black Box, both getting ahead of Fleddy and Noah, and they've caught up to the back of Daniel, but not exactly streaking their way through the field at this moment in time.
Yeah, the answer, to be honest, Basley there in 8th position as well. He's hanging on there quite well. Luca in 9th. But as you say, the likes of Fleddy, the likes of Zerderman not making their way through the field. Boss Wanted into 11th, Black Box in 12th. They're on the fresher set of tyres, so you would imagine they're going to be the quickest men out on track, but they're not going to be because of the big DRS changes. I've just chatted my teeth together. That's horrible. Boss Wanted there in 11, Daniel in 10, and Boss Wanted, obviously, you would think, in theory, they're the quickest man out on track, but of course they're not because of the DRS trains that would inevitably form, and of course of the trains that will form out on track, and that is why they are beginning to struggle and they're not making as many positions throughout the field. Jensen and Connor's looking quite interesting though. 6th and 7th position. Smalley is under pressure now from North, and they're hop on board once again the Smalley train, and it's now 3.5 seconds in fact actually between Lynx and Smalley pretty much. Bunty trying to fight on the back of Nuth just in front of this as well, but Jensen looks like a bit of a shell of his former self in this second half of the race. Connor looks more confident, I've got to say, in the inside. There's another spinner, Noah's spun on a fresh adventures coming through turn 5, and now Bunty on the back of Nuff trying to get the move done. Not quite late on the brakes. Boss Wanted, however, is through on Daniel. I think that might have been moved to the right-hand side there between the Alpha Tauris, and Boss Wanted now through, and he's into P10. And why wouldn't you? Because he is on the fresher tyres, and now he could let Black Box through as well. I think Black Box, though, wants to try and get this done cleanly as Daniel carries himself out wide. Black Box down the inside line. This should be quite easy now. To the outside of turn 3. They're leaning on each other slightly, but a lovely move there by Black Box. He's through, and he's into P11, and Connor's right on the back of his teammate.
Yeah, Connor right on the back of Bunty, and I wonder if there is any communication here. Jensen getting very close to the back of the NSX driver in the Ferrari as well. So that's the thing with Connor. If he goes a bit aggressive here, he knows Jensen and many other cars are just waiting for their chance, waiting in the wings to try and get an overtake done. And that's probably what's affecting things at this moment in time, is no one's willing to really go for it because they know the consequences of getting it wrong means you are going to lose a lot of positions. Connor very slow on this lap, and look at Jensen, he's going to go all the way around the outside before we even get to the braking zone, and I think Basti is going to try and join in this one as well. These two cars are leading each other. Connor having a bit of a nightmare lap, very late move there from Connor to try and block off that one. That was never going to work, unfortunately, for him. And he's diving into the pits. He must have damage, surely. He's got some front wing damage because he's all over the place.
He is all over the place. He's back into the pit lane. I wonder if he's going to speed into the pit lane here and retire the car. It looks to me, honestly, Basti down the inside line. That move should have never have happened. Down the inside line, way too aggressive. He's thrown his into 7th. Connor must have damage still on that car. He is into the pit stops for a front wing change, so I'm not surprised. Daniel is also struggling out on track. He's into the pit lane for a fresh set of inters as well. So, and he's also got front wing damage by the looks. So both of them now got front wing damage, and they're down in 14th and 15th position. They may as well keep going because Noah, has already been lapped by the guys out on track, and Noah is literally just behind the front two, out on track. Tom Robert leading the way, though. Lynx in 2nd, Smalley in 3rd. Still the rain falls here in Hungary. That's 22 out of 35. Enough there in P4. Of course, if you are enjoying the stream, like, comment, subscribe, tick that notification bell, of course, if you are new. Bunty again looks on the back of Nuff, but when they go through the slow speed corners, it almost looks like the rain is beginning to stop. And then when they speed up again, obviously the rain begins to fall. But I think this time, it's beginning to ease out on track, and Bunty's all the way sideways coming out of turn 11. This rain is beginning to ease, and I think we're not too far away from dries, because this track does dry quite quick. But I think with the sun glaring through, the rain is pretty much stopped.
Yeah, there's a lot less spread. You can see on the halo, there's barely any raindrops at this moment in time compared to what they were earlier. Disaster for the Ferrari team. It must have been.
Oh my God, Jensen, sorry to cut in, has just had a fight moment coming out the final corner. How on earth he's kept that going, I do not know. Great recovery, and he stays in P6. I do not know how he recovered that car, because that was going in the wall.
Yeah, fantastic reactions from Jensen, and Basti not close enough to take advantage of it. As I was saying, Connor must have just tapped the back of Bunty and damaged his front wing, and that is why he was struggling so much in the middle sector. Had to pretty much let Jensen through, and Basti thought he might as well follow, and I think Basti probably thinking that he wasn't left a space out on circuit as there is a spinner,
Noah.
And that is, did get a bit excited there because I saw it happen near the front of the field, but that is Noah who has spun. He's a lap down. As long as he finishes though, stays in 16th, he will pick himself 4 points.
Oh.
I think after spinning, getting a 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits is rather harsh, and I think we can say, officially, it has stopped raining, folks.
It has stopped raining. The track is beginning to dry off on the right-hand side. You'll see the dry line begin to form in terms of the broadcast cam, but on the TV pod, it looks still quite wet. The spray on the track is not really that much, to be honest. I wonder if the guys are going to pit in a little bit sooner rather than later. Tom was certainly not in. Link is not in. I think they're going to continue on at least for another lap or two. But look at this, and behind, Bunty's trying to go all the way around that tunnel through the final corner. This will be brilliant if he can pull it off. Round the outside line, the Brit and his fellow countryman, they pick up a 3-second time penalty both, and now Jensen right on the back of this as well. It's a battle of the drag running down in towards turn 1. Can he get the move done? No, he's on the inside line, just about gets Bunty. There might have been a slight bit of front wing come off the car there, only slight, but Bunty there in P5 doesn't get the move done, but he has to try something going around the outside line as Luke is into the back of Basti and behind, and now Black Box is down the inside line of Boss Wanted is beginning to kick off big time, and we're not even into the dry running.
Yeah, Connor, fastest of everyone on his fresh set of intermediate tyres. I don't think this lap's going to be the one, but maybe the next one. If you're a bit further down the order, it might be worth going for as Noah retires from the session. That is in the pits. We've got our first man. I think Nuffs have made a slight mistake. That's allowed Bunty to get through and allowed Jensen to get down the inside into the chicane at 6 and 7. So Nuff really looking like he's struggling in these conditions on those older intermediates. Daniel, first driver in, he's gone for a set of softs. It will be soft tyres for everyone towards the end of this race. And if Tom Robbo, if he calls this right, it should be a fairly straightforward victory. Are we going to see the front two come into the pits this lap around, or will they go on for one extra? They're starting to slide on their intermediates. It's one extra lap for Tom Robbo. It's one extra for Lynx. I wouldn't be surprised if someone in this train dives in for a set of slicks.
I mean, Jensen, I was right on board with him, and I thought he was going to come into the pits. He was all over the back, though, of Bunty, and Bunty is sliding all over the place. coming out of the final corner, and he was right tucked into the slipstream. But I know these two, they are friends, and I don't think they would be wanting to make contact. Fleddy is through, he's into P10 on Boss Wanted. Boss Wanted had a mistake, I think, out of the final corner, and Fleddy is now through, and he's into P10. There's a car gone off there, down in towards turn 1. Basti ran wide through turn 1, and now Luca tries to clip on the up and under. Now on the outside arm, there's another spinner in the middle sector, and that's Daniel, and that's at a soft compound tyres. Definitely not dry compound tyres yet. I think we're still 3 laps away, to be honest. 2 or 3 laps away, we are away from being dry running out on track, because it's too early. Daniel losing time pretty much 4, 5 tenths, I would say, a corner. And now, obviously, they're beginning to really struggle on these set of inters. So I think the time, probably in 2 or 3 laps' time, for a set of dries.
Yeah, and once it goes, you don't want to be 1 lap late, of course, otherwise you're really costing yourself. And that's sort of the advantage maybe Tom Robbo and Lynx have, is they've only got to worry about each other at the moment. They can afford to maybe go slightly longer, but yeah, Daniel, he's all over the place here. Lost his front wing as well. Not sure whether he lost that before or after he was losing all that time, but whether it's a cause or a consequence. But he's just making his way back towards the pits for a new front wing, and very possibly another set of the slick tyres as well, because I think now if you pit for intermediates, he's just going to have to come in a couple of laps' time. Fair play to Smalley. He has drove absolutely brilliantly at this moment in time. Yes, he's not got the pace of those drivers ahead of him, as we've got our first prediction of lap 27 for a set of the slick tyres, so that is 2 laps' time. Smalley's done a brilliant job. He's not got the pace of those ahead of him, but no one's been able to get ahead of him. No one's been able to get past him.
When you've got 2 slower drivers beside each other, Bunty is a slower driver in his own right. He's been looking quicker, though, at parts than Smalley. Smalley has just held all of these guys up, and I think if I was Jensen, I would have tried to get the move done on Bunty ages ago to try and then counteract on the back of Smalley and then come in for a much better, fresher set of tyres. Obviously going on for a set of dries. Connor's now in for a set of mediums, so that's quite interesting. He's now in for a set of mediums, and Bunty all out of shape, and now Jensen to the outside line into the chicane. Bunty goes deep, he's run over the chicane, and now Jensen surely got to get this move done. He does. Jensen through, he's into P4. It was inevitable. Bunty's been struggling on those inters for quite a few laps now, and he's overworn them slightly. Now Jensen through, and he's into P4. Nuthbear in P6 as well, trying to pick up on the Vanguard. But now, literally what I said is now came true. Jensen is the quicker driver now. He can close on the back of Smalley. He's now got pace. Let's see what he's made of.
Yeah, we're hearing that. Apparently it's looking very dry in sector 2, so maybe different parts of the track are drier than the others. Find it strange that Connor's gone for a set of mediums. Had he burned through all his soft tyres? You'd have expected him to maybe have 1 for a set of the soft tyres, but yeah, Connor still losing a bit of time to some of the others, as that is Bunty, first one of the lead drivers to come into the pits, and after losing a position, perhaps thinking now is the time. We're seeing Basti coming in black box as well. Surprised that him and Connor came in off their fresher set of the intermediates, because I think they're still losing time. Whether they'll be losing time in a lap's time, I'm not so sure. Halfway around the track, it might all of a sudden become a negative, from a negative to a positive, having that set of the slick tyres. Jensen, even he's not been able to get on the back of Smalley. DRS enabled. That says to me it's slick tyres.
It is slick tyres, and I'm going to be honest, Connor wasn't really catching that much before the DRS was actually enabled, so I'm a bit concerned. I think these guys now in a set of inters, although DRS might be enabled, the track still looks quite greasy, and I think these are the guys to be on board with. Connor beginning to catch now. Oh, good 10th of a second, and now he's absolutely flying out on track in terms of gaining the time. Obviously, drivers coming out of the pit lane ahead of him, but now Connor, the main one to watch. Tom one's wide, coming out of turn 11. Lynx Diddy follows them through as well. Jensen on the back of Smalley still cannot find a way through, but everyone now going to be pitting in. Is it perceivable to think that Bunty could be actually leading this race once they all come in?
No. I think he was too far behind. He was 10 seconds behind Tom Robbo. That is a big, big gap, of course. We are seeing cars come into the pits. Connor retires from the race. He's lost it
Safety
a long
car.
way down, and that's going to be a full safety car. That is music to the ears of everyone who stayed out, and a disaster for Bunty, Basti, Black Box, and Daniel. They're going to have to go at a much reduced speed. Might not lose out too much, but yeah, ideal now. Come into the pits, you do a few laps under the safety car on this set of soft tyres, and the track will be absolutely perfect by the time you come back in. And Smalley on mediums, that's a mistake, surely.
That is a mistake, surely. I'm not sure if he's actually chosen his tyres or if it's the game that's actually chosen his tyres for him. But, of course, he can't use up 2 mandatory sets of the dry compounded tyres because it's been a wet start to the race. Simply as that. So they can only use one set of dry compound tyres. Bunty, by the way, is behind Daniel coming out of the pit lane. Daniel is still in this race. He's there in 14th position. It'll be once Connor, obviously, his car gets removed and he passes him out on track. But he's got a ghost car pretty much ahead of him, and Bunty's going to be off-putted by this. He's got pretty much Daniel ahead of him, and Daniel's going to be interfering with at least half the field here. Not only to throw in, of course, a bit of a spanner into the works. Tom Rubber leading the way, Lynx in second. Smalley, though, on a set of mediums. Think it's the wrong call, but has he done that to possibly try and counteract Jensen and Luca behind and try and hold on to that P3? That is what I'm thinking. It's a tactical decision. Let's see if it pulls off or not.
It can only have been a mistake or an accident. Yeah. I think we can say there's going to be, what, 5 racing laps left? Maybe 6 when the safety car comes in? The softs are definitely going to last 6 laps. They are going to be the faster tyre, especially, you can see this middle sector, how twisty it is, the traction zones as well. You're going to get eaten alive by those on the soft tyres, I'm afraid, Smalley. I think you've made a mistake in this situation. I could be proven wrong, of course. I have been many, many other times before when I'm commentating, but I think Jensen and quite a lot of the field are going to be getting ahead of Smalley, unfortunately for him. And for the second time, Tom Robbo's built a lead in this race, and he's watched it absolutely vanish. And now it's going to be more straightforward for the drivers behind him, because if we say the safety car comes in at the end of lap 30, we're going to get 5 racing laps. We'll be able to use the DRS on some of those.
Perpetuum's back into the pit lane, which is quite interesting. He is back into the pits. And does he want the safety car to stay at least another lap, possibly? And that's why he's trying to come into the pit lane now? Or has he picked up any bit of front wing damage? I wonder. Let's have a look. Into the pit lane. Set of mediums. So he goes onto the yellow wall compounded tyre. I wonder if there's rain due at the end of this race. This is what I'm thinking now. Perpetuum in for a set of medium compounded tyres. Smalley on a set of mediums. Mediums will obviously act better than a set of softs in terms of wet conditions. Track is dry, but it is still looking a little bit greasy in parts. I don't know. Perpetuum, I think, has probably done the wrong decision here. Track is dry and it still looks very greasy. Perpetuum, though, I mean, it cries out that there's going to be rain at the end of the race. I can only think that.
Even then, I'm not quite so sure. I think you'd want maybe the soft tyres, which might just grip slightly better for slightly longer, although their temperature range does tend to, their optimum temperature range does tend to be a bit higher, and they would lose temperature a bit quicker. Got Tom Robbo here just revving the guts out of that Mercedes hybrid unit in the back of the Williams, just to try to burn any fuel, of course. They don't have a rich mode here. With 3 safety cars now, there will be a lot of fuel. I was wondering whether Perpetuum was getting rid of a 5-second penalty. He clearly wasn't, so yeah, not sure why you'd give up track position and go onto another set of tyres, unless there is some strange thing happening in this race. And in fact, the safety car's coming in at the end of this lap, so we are going to get 6 laps of green flag action, and it's now up to Tom Robbo to just sort of control the pack here and to try and streak away and get his first victory of the season.
Yeah, definitely, but Lynx is no slouch. Now that they're on terra firma, now that they're on fair ground, this is where we are going to see who's going to be the quickest. I think Jensen could be the quickest out of the whole lot of them. He's there in 4th. He's right on the back of Smalley. Tom Rubber, though, out of the final corner, is about to say go once again, about to go green. With 6 laps of racing left to go, Tom Rubber leading the way. Lynx in 2nd, Smalley in 3rd, and Jensen is already side by side with Smalley down in towards turn 1. Cunny looks to the inside line, actually dives it to the outside line, and it's absolutely waltzed around the outside line. Lovely move that. Daniel, by the way, got to moved out of the way of the whole field, which I think is very respectful. Smalley's on the wrong tyres. He's now been overtaken by Luca. Nutt's involved in this as well. Jensen, though, into P3. Crucial for him. Luca got held up there slightly by Smalley, and now Nutt's right on the back of Smalley on the run up towards turn 4. Can he try and get the move done around the outside line? Probably not. Basti has also a few positions coming out of turn 3 as well, so he must have made a mistake. He's down there in 11th position, but Tom Rubber leading the way, 1.2 seconds. Lynx, I think, has made a mistake, if I'm not mistaken. They're in 2nd, and now Jensen all over the back of him.
Yeah, Jensen really flying at the moment. They're going to be sending it for these final few laps. Surprised we've only seen 5 penalties so far in this race. 3 seconds for Noof Bunty. That is really going to be punishing for them now, because, oh, Jensen's had a big moment coming through turn 11. Thankfully for him, Luca wasn't close to him, but that was a massive side. That's now Fleddy, who's gone all the way around, donutting. Coming out of turn number 11, he drops down into 13th. Noof works his way past Smalley. He's fighting as hard as he can. Is Smalley. Where have we seen a Red Bull get a bit feisty with some of the other cars around him, and that might give Bunty an opportunity to get ahead as well. these time penalties could really cost you now because you haven't got much time to try and build a gap. And you can see Smalley's just trying anything to break away from Noof here. DRS will get activated next time around, but they won't be able to use it until lap 33 as down the inside goes Noof. But has he got a bit too deep?
Wow. Lovely move. Nerf is through and he's into P5 and now Bunty down the inside line. Down in towards turn 2, forces Smalley off track slightly. Daniel's retired out of the race. He's crashed through turn 2. Is that going to be another safety car perhaps? It's a VSC and Smalley has actually crashed out of the race as well, coming through turn 3. So now might be a full safety car and it is. Wow, oh wow, oh wow. Full safety car, 5 laps to go. Tom Robber leading the way, Links in second. And for the 3rd time this race, Tom Robber now has had his advantage completely and utterly wasted away once again. Another safety car out on track, both Smalley and Daniel out of the race. Daniel crashing through turn 2, and Smalley, I think, getting caught in a bit of contact, possibly with Bunty coming out of turn 3, and that's why he spun around and he's got off into the wall. But Tom Robber leading the way. And now, safety car is going to be out for a maximum of 2 laps. We're only going to get, I think, 2 laps worth of racing.
Yeah, in the end, we're not going to get any DRS in this race, and that is music to the ears, I think, of Tom Robbo, who's led almost since the start of this race. As soon as Jensen, as soon as he decided to pit earlier on, that turned out to be the best strategy to do, and it's worked out well for him, and he came so close to a victory. He was arguably the fastest driver around Azerbaijan, and his own mistake cost him a victory. He's definitely been the fastest driver so far here today, and he's going to have to hang on for 2 laps perhaps after the safety car. No DRS might make it a bit easier for him. Lynx is going to have to try and hold on as well from Jensen. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen the last of drivers spinning around. Daniel and Smalley both getting it wrong on that lap. It's interestingly, as soon as it became dry, I swear, in 1.5 laps, we had 3 cars having separate incidents. We barely had that while it was wet.
Yeah, totally, and I think, honestly, it's the changeable conditions that caught everyone out. And obviously, given that we were running into the race time here, of course, we were due to start, obviously, at 7 o'clock. Put back to 7:30 before even the race began in real life. Nothing's picked up a 5-second penalty, though, with a severe collision with Bunty. I wonder if Bunty's picked up the same. He hasn't. And Nothing's the one that's came out worse. So he's picked up a 5-second penalty, maybe slowing down. I wouldn't say on purpose at all. And I think Nothing's probably realised that Luca was ahead of him. Probably just slammed on the brakes. And he's gone possibly into the back. Oh, Bunty's gone into the back of him. And the coding in the game has probably thought, no, I'll award you a 5-second penalty for that. And he's now to 8 seconds worth of penalties. There's no there in the Williams. Tom Rubble leading the way. The Lynx in second. Jensen third. Perpetuum just latching on to the back of the safety car queue. But, of course, it has to be out for a minimum of 2 laps. And we're going to get racing, of course, going. Next lap around, 2 laps worth of DRS is all that's needed. But I think we're reaching the crescendo, but I think it's now going to be desperation from a few of these guys out on track.
Yeah, certainly. I think he should be able to get that penalty removed fairly straightforward. So if I was him, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Again, getting that time penalty earlier on for him, Bunty, Boss Wanted and Basti has really shafted them because they've got 2 laps to try and get 3 seconds ahead of some of these cars behind them. They're going to find it very difficult, no matter how good you are, to gain 1.5 seconds a lap. We are going to have this final lap under the safety car. Jensen got a very good restart last time, which I think was more down to the fact that Smalley, who has admitted it was just a mistake, he says, if I'd have finished for the softs, if I'd have pitted for the softs, I'd have finished that race. So I wonder whether he just lost it on traction, cooler conditions on that set of the mediums. Jensen, he knows he could have won this race. Not bad damage limitation to get yourself up into 3rd place. I think he'll definitely be trying to get ahead of Lynx. Passing 2 cars is going to be a tall order. His 100% podium record, I think, is going to be safe. His 100% win record, he's going to have to drive the 2 laps of his life if he wants to take the victory.
He's got to hold, ideally, for a Tom Rubble mistake, i.e. Baku 2 weeks ago. That's what I think. And Jensen probably realised that Lynx, he's probably got Lynx's number. But Lynx is a quick driver on a set of soft compounded tyres, and we saw he initially got a very good start on the back of Tom Rubble, made a mistake coming through turn 5, and it's something like that that can bring Jensen, maybe even Luca into play, Nothing to play as well. Obviously, it's going to be quite interesting to see how everything gets on. I'm really not counting Black Box out of this either. Black Box in 7, clear of the penalties. He's got everyone around him, 2 drivers ahead and 2 drivers behind, on penalties so far. Black Box, I wouldn't count him out at all in terms of possibly picking up a podium, because if this gets aggressive, with the safety car now coming in this lap, if this gets desperate from a few of the guys, there's going to be quite a few of these guys further down the field picking up positions.
Yeah, there could be as well. I mean, Lynx, he should be aware of where Tom Wobbo went last time, so you'd imagine Tom Wobbo is going to drop the hammer at a slightly different point on this occasion. There's 2 laps to go, safety car coming in at the end of this one, and there we go, Tom Wobbo going quite early in the end of just getting that pretty much absolutely perfect. No one able to follow him in the dirty air, and we are back on the way again. Black Box is all over the back of Bunty, but it's going to be fairly straightforward on the run down towards turn number 1. Tom Wobbo in the lead, Lynx in second, Jensen third, Luca, Noof, Bunty, Black Box, Boss Wanted, Basti, Zoidema, Fleddy, and Perpetuum getting very close to the back of Fleddy, but not able to get any moves done. So quite a sensible restart in all of that. Again, Tom Wobbo, he's nailed it on the safety cars here. He's nearly a second ahead already. He could just sort of try and run away with this race, knowing that as long as Lynx isn't within attack range into turn 1 next time around, he should be safe to just bring home the victory as long as he keeps it on the track.
Yeah, you'd imagine so. Lynx is showing a lack of pace now, to be honest, and Jensen now is all over the back of him, coming through the middle sector, coming to the S section of turn 8, and now to the right-hander of turn 9. Tom Wobbo leading the way. Hungry coming down to a crescendo. Tom Wobbo is a second clear now of Lynx, and Jensen is all over the back of Lynx, running down in towards turn 12. Can he get the move done? Probably not. Can Basti get the move done? Boss Wanted further down the field. Yes, he dives it down the inside line. Boss Wanted realises he's there. That was very late again from Basti. And Boss Wanted thinks, you know what, I'm going to try and run you off track as well. And they're now beginning to fight like Hamilton and Verstappen in Saudi Arabia tonight. But Basti in P8, Boss Wanted in P9, and Zerdema is not entirely out of this either. Jensen, though, coming storming at the back of Lynx, down in towards turn 1. He sends it down the inside on the championship leader. Can he get the move done? Lynx has the traction, and Lynx will get the run down in towards turn 2. He remains in P2 as well. And Jensen now got to be very careful. He's got Lynx's number, but where's he going to try and go for the move if he is going to go for the move?
I don't think there's anywhere he can really do it. Maybe try and force him to take a bit of a deeper line into the chicane and get him on the exit, perhaps. Otherwise, we've seen, I think, Basti try and go for a few moves into turn number 12. I don't see where else. Oh, almost into the back of Lynx there. In fact, he might have touched him because Lynx had a very poor run through the chicane, and Jensen just not able to get that move done. It is turn number 12 or bust now for Jensen to try and get second in this race. Tom Wobbo streaking away. Boss Wanted picking up another time penalty. And in fact, I think Jensen's got the run here. He's going to go down the inside into turn number 12 on the final sector. What a move from Jensen.
And that now secures possibly P2 as well. Tom Wobbo, however, is going to secure the win. He's coming out of turn 13 through the right-hander of turn 14. What a race here in Hungary. Round the final corner, Tom Wobbo nearly spun it out the final corner, but he wins in Hungary. Jensen across the line in second. Lynx in third. We'll wrap up the rest of the field as we go along. Luca in fourth. Black Box is fifth in the end. Zerdema sixth. Bunty there in seventh. We'll wrap up the rest of the field as we go through. What a race that was in Hungary. A lot of safety cars being deployed. It was like Saudi Arabia, to be honest. Black Box the awarded driver of the day by the in-game fans. Well, I think, honestly, there's only one driver of the day, and that is Tom Wobbo. To the top step of the podium he comes. The Liverpudlian retribution for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, certainly. Let's be honest, if things had worked out slightly differently, he could well be leading the championship. He's closed the gap on Tom Wobbo, on Jensen even, but these two really look the class of the field at the moment. They're just at the front in every single race with 6 races to go. I think we could have a classic battle between the two IFR drivers for the championship. Great job by Lynx as well. Just couldn't quite hold on to get that second place. Third, though, still a good result, and another good result for the Mercedes team.
Yeah, I believe in all of that as well. Tom Wobbo takes second of Zerdema in terms of the championship standings as well. Obviously, with his win, Zerdema in sixth, guaranteed. He's up into second position. So Tom Wobbo wins here from a very transitional race here in Hungary. Tom Wobbo wins from Jensen in second, Lynx in third, and IFR 1, 2, 3. I'm sure if the IFR guys are looking on, they're thinking, well done, guys. Well done. Luca in fourth, Black Box in fifth, Zerdema in sixth, Bunty there in seventh. Drove very well, I've got to say, above where he was expecting to be, I'm sure. Fleddy there in eighth, Tom Wobbo, Perpetuum, in 9th, Nuff in 10th, Basti in 11th, Boss Wanted in 12th. They're the only finishers actually out of this race. Smalley, Daniel, Connor, Noah Jones, Funky Chicken, Rudy and Chalkers all out of the race at various points. Tom Rubble, they're winning. Jensen second, Lynx in third. Shall we try and get the top three in?
We shall indeed, and do you know what? They've been extremely quick tonight. they're all in the waiting room straight away. You'd almost think that they're starting to get used to this now, which makes my job a lot easier, and I'm sure makes your job a lot easier as well, James. So we'll start, hopefully, dragging all these drivers over to the commentary box and we can start the interviews.
Yep, all three of them are now beginning to join us in, and now we move on to, of course, our P1 man, Tom Rubbo. And you had to work for it there. 3 safety cars ebbing away at your advantage. You kept your cool. You win the race. Talk us through
it. Yeah, I just got the call right to go to the inters and then kept it clean from there. I mean, it's a bit annoying to get, like, my gap shut down twice, but in the end, I can't really complain.
Yeah, you can't really complain. I mean, your gap, I think, on the interstint was, 7 seconds, I think, to Lynx, which was unbelievable in terms of the pace that you were showing. But obviously, talk us through that mindset that you were going into. With those safety cars coming out, it obviously ebbed away your advantage. Did you ever feel like you were going to be pressured from in behind?
Well, I knew if Jensen wasn't on the same strategy as me and I got it right, I'd probably have the pace over the others. Other than maybe Connor, but I didn't really see him throughout the race. So yeah.
Yeah, and obviously...
Yeah, didn't really think about it.
Didn't really think about it, and obviously I think the focus was on more of the road ahead rather than the guys behind, which I think is the best way, certainly to approach, certainly like a track like Hungary. But an absolute fantastic drive from you, and it is, of course, retribution for the last 2 weeks, because you really haven't had the best of luck in the last couple of weeks.
Nah, I completely bottled it twice. So I'm glad that I didn't bottle it this time, although I was quite close on the last corner.
Picks up for the bottles, I am sure. I am really sure. Luke, I'm going to come across to you. Any questions?
Just one question for me. Tell us what it was like on each of the restarts, because I think you were in the lead pretty much for the last couple of restarts. Were you slightly worried by Lynx behind, perhaps going for a move, or did you already have an idea of where the best place was to put the throttle down?
The first restart that I led, I went really early to build a gap. But then the second safety car, it was more about keeping cars in between me and Jensen, or me and whoever was on the freshest inters. I think people paid for fresh inters, so I had to go late instead. But then on the last safety car, I had to go early again to pull away from Lynx and Jensen as well.
Yeah, well, it certainly worked for you. Congratulations on your first win of the season. I'll hand you back to
Thanks.
James.
Yeah, my final question, Tom. Obviously, Zandvoort next week in the Netherlands. How do you think you're going to get on?
Oh, I'm so bad at Zandvoort. It's like I have no expectations, as I didn't have any today really either. But yeah, Zandvoort, hopefully like keeping the tire temps down, maybe a bit of strategy with wet maybe again. But I don't think I'll be exceptionally fast.
Well, you never know. No expectations, I think, is the best way to approach. And if you had no expectations coming into tonight, goodness knows what's going to happen, of course, next week. But go and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
And now we move on to our man, of course, who finished in P2, making that late dive in towards turn 12. It is, of course, IFR Jensen. And Jensen, a fantastic result from you. You don't keep up the 100% record, I'm afraid, in terms of the wins, but you still have a 100% record in terms of the podiums. Talk us through the race, because it was quite a wacky one.
Yeah, Tom got his one back from Baku in the end today. But yeah, they got the strategy right today. I think definitely had the pace to win this race in the dry. I think the rain I'll be about the same as them, but I think in the end made the wrong call. I dropped to net P9, which wasn't great, and it was quite hard to get through, but I just took advantage of their mistakes. And when it came to it, Smalley was on the medium. I was up in P4, and when we got into the dry, Smalley's on the mediums. It was quite easy into turn 1. He broke very early on the inside, and yeah, getting links on the final lap as well. I was trying to look for a run into turn one, couldn't find that, but literally I knew that was like my last opportunity, so went for that, and in the end made it stick. And yeah, P2. I mean, I'll take that. Considering where I was, it was quite a fun race in the end. But yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely fun to commentate on, I can guarantee that. I was literally saying at the start of the stream, if it's anything like F2, it'll be an absolute instant classic. And I think it was in terms of the action, of course, in terms of the transition. Talk us through what happened early on in the race, though, because as you say, you were net P9 at one stage. You wouldn't have thought a P2 in the end would have been the best result.
Yeah, I mean, I was leading under the safety car, of course, but I didn't know what to go for. Like, I didn't know if I stayed out or go in because, like, they kept on saying Inters or Wet's the best tyre, but I didn't think the Inters would be much closer because it was just remaining that and the track looked drenched. But when we got on the restart, it looked a little bit promising when Tom and the Interpack dropped off a bit, but they came into the window and yeah, in the end didn't work out, and it didn't work out for me and Connor because yeah, in the end we dropped all the way down to 9th and 10th, but yeah, in the end I managed to fight through, which was not too bad, and yeah, in the end P2's damage limitation considering that race, so in the end it's good points.
Yeah, I think in terms of the points as well, you only lose, what, I think 5 or 6 points to Tom Robbo, obviously picking up the fastest lap in the world, which obviously gets the fastest lap point. You only drop 6 points. You've still got more than a race advantage over Tom going in course into next week. I'm going to hand you over to Luke, though. Luke, any questions?
Yeah, I think in fact the championship lead I think your lead in the Championship stays at 34 points. How difficult, Jensen, was it once you got stuck in that train? I think it was behind Smalley. We saw a few drivers trying to dip out and make moves. So hard around here, obviously, to overtake normally, even more so when there's no DRS.
Yeah, it's hard to get on the brakes as well because you're fearing if you're going to hit the driver ahead. But in the end, it was just, yeah, I think biding my time and waiting for the mistakes was the right way to go around it. And if I had the opportunity, I'd go for it. I mean, sort of put your rival in a difficult situation and then just try and get the run on them. But yeah, it's so tricky to stay close to people. But yeah, in the end, it was just taking advantage of everyone else's mistakes. So yeah.
Yeah, certainly. There was a lot of stuff happening in that race. I'll hand you back over to James.
Yeah, as always, final question from me. Zandvoort next week. How do you think you're going to get on?
Ooh, I can't wait for the Zandvoort, actually. It's one of my favourite tracks. I've got some really nice pace around there. I think probably land a mid to high 9 around there, which is quite fast for my standard anyway. I'm hoping to get my race winning progress back on track, but we'll see. I think it's always a good one at Zandvoort, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've still got a healthy advantage going into next week, so it's not as if you're going to lose the championship lead going, of course, into next week, but go and enjoy your evening.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the commentary as always.
Very welcome indeed. And now we'll move on, of course, to our man who finished in P3, and it is, of course, IFR Lynx. And Lynx, you had a lot of good pace, actually, in that final stint. Talk us through your race.
Yeah, so in the race, when it was raining, I was actually happy because my dry pace was not that good considering qualifying and then that end stint on like the 5 laps on the softs. So in the rain, it was more just get used to it quicker than everyone else and, just try and work my way through everyone. And, just those first couple of laps, there was just gaps that I was just getting in that was just working. And I was up to like P5, I think, in the wets. And then obviously when the safety car came out, I was just telling Jeff every corner if the inters would be better or the wets, and I was gonna go inters anyway, but I was gonna see who in front of me I was gonna pit, and I saw Tom go in, So I was like, yeah, I'm just going to follow. But I was going to do it anyway. And then, yeah, it proved to be the right strat. As soon as I got out on the inters, they were perfect. And then, yeah, it was just getting through the two people in front of me, Basti, who spun, and then it was just me by myself. And then the safety car came out again, and then I was just telling myself just keep on the track. Like, I've got good pace. There's no reason to just push that bit too hard to catch Tom because I'm not going to pass him. So yeah, it was just controlling my pace, and then obviously the safety car came out again when it was dry. Like the safety car came out as soon as we pitted, so that was quite lucky because people pitted the lap before. And then obviously when the safety car came out, we all bunched up again, and then Jensen just made his way through, and I just bottled the final sector so hard because he's the championship leader. I don't want to break too late or too early and like break his wing or something. And then when he went for the dive, I wasn't gonna like cut him off or break way late and try and battle him. I would try and battle him, but I was just in the wrong spot of the track, and so I wouldn't say I let him have it, but he was past before I even thought of a defense. But yeah, P3, my first podium, which is good. No assists. I'm working on it, and I'd say it's going well. So yeah, good pace in the rain. I'm gonna have to work in the dry pace though, but I'll take a podium. It's good.
Yeah, podium certainly, because you joined late last season as well, and you showed quite a lot of pace, and I'm sure you were on pole position in Abu Dhabi as well. So obviously picking up this podium must feel very good, of course, going for the rest of the season.
Yeah, getting the podium at a track that I do like, especially in the rain. I've always liked the rain in this game. I just feel like I just get up to speed on it quite quickly in the race, and yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. This podium's just gonna motivate me to keep doing better in this league. Obviously, maybe a win. It might be possible if Jensen or Tom, get crashed or have another race like this. But who knows? I'll keep pushing and see what happens.
Well, as I say, anything can happen in Formula One. I mean, we saw it last earlier on in terms of Saudi Arabia in real life. Yeah. So obviously that might come into play as well. But Luke, I'm going to come across to you. Any questions?
Yeah, just one from me, Lynx. You've been on the intermediate tyres quite a long time by the time the rain stopped and the safety car came out. Just how difficult was it for the final few laps on what was a very worn set of intermediates?
I don't know. To me, the inters didn't really drop off that much. The pace was quite good from when I put them on to when I took them off to go to the softs. Like every lap, I could just push, and it was really, really satisfying to just every lap just go around, and it was consistent pace. And yeah, I enjoyed the wet. And as soon as it went to dry, I was like, something's gonna go wrong here. I'm gonna either just lose so much pace or get overtaken or something. I was just praying for it to just stay dry the entire time. Stay wet, sorry. But yeah, no, it got dry and I got P3. But yeah, the inter stint was really good. Just they didn't fall off at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it definitely looked like you did a fantastic job on them. Congratulations on a first podium this season.
Yep, thanks.
Final question from me before you go, Lynx. Of course, Zandvoort next week. How do you think you're going to get on?
I do like Zandvoort. I really do like it. And driving it's just really, really cool because of all like the bankings and the fast corners and everything. It's a track I do like. But yeah, we'll see what my pace is like. Obviously, Tom and Jensen will probably be going for the win, and I'll probably be trying to get maybe a top 5 or something. But we'll see. I do like the track, and I have decent pace there. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we will definitely see. Indeed, go and enjoy your evening, though, Lynx.
Yep, thanks.
Very welcome indeed, and that marks us, of course, the end of tonight's TTML F1 stream. Thank you to everyone, of course, that tuned in tonight. And, of course, if you did like the stream, like, comment, subscribe, tick that notification bell if you are new to League Racing TV. And I set the challenge, by the way, on F2. If we get 1.2k subscribers before Christmas, that would be absolutely ideal. So, if you've got friends, family, whoever, get the subscribers in, and we'll get the money rolling in, which, of course, goes back to the league as well. Yes, I just did say that on the stream. Luke, I'm going to come across to you, though. Driver of the day?
I think you can't really argue with Tom Robbo, can you? Every situation where you had to call it right, he did. Got the call to intermediate, spot on, yes, under a safety car. Same with the call to the dry tyres, but just seemed to have the pace, no matter what the tyres were, to pull away. Didn't get any penalties throughout the race as well. Kept it nice and clean. And I think after what happened to him in Baku, kind of what happened to him after last week in Imola, he needed that victory. I think we'll see him getting a few more this season. It could be a really interesting battle between him and Jensen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Tom Robbo certainly deserves Driver of the Day. Absolute fantastic drive, dominated the race, and he overall deserves Driver of the Day from us both. A little bit of breaking news, actually. Theo Pourchaire has just released a statement on Twitter. Obviously, you might have seen the crash in F2 earlier on, and he wanted to tell everyone that he's globally fine. For the moment, I don't know if it's already the end of the season, but the most important thing is not that. That was a really big one, and Enzo Fittipaldi, the other driver involved, is injured, apparently, within that accident, and he wishes him the best of recovery possible. So good to see Theo Pourchaire is obviously recovering. Hopefully he might be racing the last race of the season in Abu Dhabi. But if not, of course, then he's been an absolute asset, I think, to F2. And of course, we wish both of them well in their recoveries, especially so Enzo Fittipaldi, because I think it was a 72G registered incident, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously a horrible incident, and we wish them, of course, the best of recoveries from all of us here in TTML. And I think with that, we can end off the stream now. So a big thank you to everyone, of course, tuning in for tonight. And as I say, if you did like it, like, comment, subscribe, tick the notification bell. Of course, if you are new, more action come during the week. CWC is live tomorrow night, Monday, 7 p.m. for League 1 and League 2. And then I think it's 8 p.m. in fact for League 1 and League 2. And then we're back, of course, TTML F2 and F3 around Zandvoort on at 8 p.m. UK time on Thursday. And then F4 and F5, of course, live on Friday as well. And then me and Luke are back next Sunday, of course, at Zandvoort once again. But once again, I've been James Head.
I've been Luke Etheridge.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, goodbye.